1. Who remembers ABC Family? And 2. Who remembers the short-lived hit television show The Lion Game?
Discover a lost twin.
It's you. It's me in the flesh.
And yes, I'm saying hit despite it only having 2 seasons, because every episode of that show got 20 million viewers in my household. The problem is I can barely remember what even happened in that show. It's been 11 years since the show got cancelled, and I'm starting to worry that the entire thing was just a fever dream. It's not streaming in the UK, so I have to live the rest of my life wondering if it actually happened or not. But before it was a TV show, The Lion Game was a 6-book series by Sarah Shepard, the author of Pretty Little Liars. I read all 18 books in the Pretty Little Liars series about 2 years ago, and I will link that video down below if you want to see how unhinged that series is. And I'm hoping for a similarly messy series in The Lion Game. This series follows Emma, who grew up in the foster system, and then later in life she finds out that she has a twin sister called Sutton, who grew up with a wealthy family. The only problem is Sutton is dead, and she's the narrator of this book series, which I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm so excited to find out. Sutton is going to get her long lost twin sister to pretend to be her in order to find out what exactly happened to her and who murdered her. This honestly sounds so messy, I cannot wait. Emma needs to become me, but can she laugh at inside jokes with my best friends, convince my boyfriend she's the girl he fell in love with? That's going to be quite something to read. Hug my parents goodnight like she's their daughter, and can she keep up the charade even after she realises my murderer is watching her every move? Like, why does none of that ring a bell? I loved the TV show. I watched all 30 episodes, but I cannot for the life of me remember a single thing. I remember the actresses and what they look like and all of that, but genuinely, this premise, it's further proving that I think the entire TV show didn't even exist. There are 6 books and 2 novellas that were only released digitally, and they can no longer be found on the internet. I've scrubbed the entire place, cannot find them, and I live in the UK too, so even when I did find them, it kept saying unavailable in your country. And that is where today's VPN sponsor comes in. I'm kidding. I'm not sponsored. I very rarely get sponsored. So the books in the series I will be reading in this vlog, all spoiler filled by the way. I'm going to go through all of them pretty in depth, let you know what I loved, hated, let you know all the messy plot points, everything. I've got you. I'm going to read these so you don't have to. The first book in the series is The Lion Game, and then the second book is Never Have I Ever. The third book is called 2 Truths and a Lie. I do love these book titles, by the way. Fourth book is called Hide and Seek. The fifth book has my favourite title, Cross My Heart, Hope to Die. Love that title so much. Might make a prediction that that might be my favourite book in the series. And the sixth and final book, 7 Minutes in Heaven. This is also the worst month that I could have picked to read these books, because I'm also in the process of moving house. So if you end up enjoying this video, please do give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now let the lies begin. Oh my god, grab yourself a hot drink, any kind of hot drink, or even a cold drink, I don't give a shit. Have something to drink during this, because I'm about to lay down absolutely every single thing. And there is a lot to discuss. I freaking love this first book. Are you kidding me? It was so good. The way the mystery is introduced, the way the characters are introduced, the way that this kind of left me a little bit wigless by the end too. Oh my god, stunning. Absolutely stunning. You can really feel the Pretty Little Liars inspiration though. You can really see so many parallels to it. So I do feel like Sarah Shepard, as she was writing this, still had those like remnants of Pretty Little Liars within her. So I'm probably just going to like tell you like everything that happens and put in my commentary every now and then. But we start with the prologue, and it establishes that Sutton has woken up in this place where she doesn't know, and she is dead. And she comes across Emma, who is a spitting double of her, and she's like, whoa, like she looks exactly like me, but she can't hear me, like what's going on? She's dead. And also Sutton gives major Alison de Laurentiis vibes as we find out more about her in the book. I don't think she's as iconic. I do think Sutton is just like nasty rather than actually being quite a witty little bitch. Because I love Alison de Laurentiis, okay? She had a really sharp tongue. Her comebacks were like pretty witty, and I mean, to be fair, it's been 2 years since I last read the Pretty Little Liars book, so maybe I'm remembering her wrong. But Alison was a bitch, and she was a good bitch. But Sutton, she's just a mean girl, and she's just nasty. But we don't find all of that out just yet. I'm jumping ahead. With the prologue out of the way, we do follow Emma at the very start of the book. She's living with her foster mum and brother, Clarice and Travis. We also find out that Emma's birth mum, Becky, she kept Emma until she was 5 years old, and then her mum said, oh, I'm going out for a trip, and then just never came back. So it's kind of alluded to the idea that Becky just left Emma and just like abandoned her. And I have some theories coming up too, but I'm not sure what to believe. I don't know if maybe she did run away or if she was murdered. There are so many breadcrumbs of potential mysteries going forward that I really do think that this laid a really solid foundation for the first book, which was exactly the same thing I said about the first book of Pretty Little Liars. Sarah Shepard knows how to write a first book in a series. She has once again grabbed me by the pussy. So Clarice, her foster mum, is awful. Absolutely awful. Travis hits on Emma and Emma like pushes him away, of course. Like, Travis is disgusting. But also $250 has gone missing from Clarice's purse and Travis says, oh, it was Emma. And without any proof or anything like that, although he does put the money in her purse and makes it look like Emma did take it. But do you know what he actually uses in order to convince his mum that it was Emma and convinces her to kick her out, essentially, is that Travis is like, oh, I'm going to show you what a freak Emma is, and then opens up this website called Sutton in AZ and shows Clarice and Emma this video of a girl who looks exactly like Emma getting strangled by a locket, and Sutton in the video is like choking, she's gasping for air, she's dying on camera and she drops to the floor. She like doesn't move and Clarice and Emma are like, what the fuck is this? And then the girl in the video, Sutton, she does cough at the end, so like she isn't dead in the video, so they didn't just watch her die. But again, it's like, wait, what? Hang on, like, why is this girl getting almost murdered in this video? But also, why does she look like me? And Travis is like, oh, that's Emma and she's a freak and this is what she does in her spare time. And Emma's like, what? I've never seen this in my life. And Clarice is like, this isn't working. I thought you were a sweet, nice girl who wouldn't cause any trouble, Emma, but this is too much for us. You can stay until your birthday, but after that, you're on your own. I'm like, so she's kicking out her foster child? It doesn't really give any indication how long she's been there, but like there hasn't been any other indication that Emma was a problem up until this point. Like, is this the first infraction that Emma ever did? They seem to be rather on good terms at the start of this book, like Clarice and Emma, and then like this one thing happens, the $250 goes missing, which Travis did plant in Emma's purse, and it like rolled out of her purse, so it looked like she did take it. You've just taken in this foster child, like she's 17, like Emma's 17 at this minute, she's about to turn 18, but still, you know, when you take in a child, no matter what age, you're supposed to look after them, you know, like you don't just kick them out because you think they stole $200 and you have this awful son of yours who hits on your foster sister and is obviously a troubled child. You just take his side and just kick out the foster child. That's honestly disgusting. And later on as well, Clarice, so Emma texts Clarice and is like, oh, this is what I'm up to. And Clarice is like, okay, well, if you need anything, let me know. How about a roof over my head, bitch? Honestly, I hope she croaks. So after Emma saw this video, she goes onto Facebook, she finds Sutton Mercer, and she lives in Arizona, and she realizes, yeah, the birthday is exactly the same. She goes through her photos, they look exactly alike. So Emma sends Sutton a message on Facebook, and we have the ghost of Sutton, like, watching all of this happen, like, she is on a radar, so, like, she's watching all this happen, and weirdly, Emma gets a reply from Sutton on Facebook, saying, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Come meet me at this place and can't wait to see you. It's actually kind of terrifying. Oh my god, I can't believe this. Yes, I was totally adopted, but I never knew you existed until now. Can you meet me at the hiking base of Sabino Canyon in Tuscan tomorrow at 6 p.m? Attached my cell number. Don't tell anyone who you are until we talk. It's dangerous. See you soon. Love, Sutton, your twin. And then the narrator, the actual Sutton, says, of course, there was one problem with that note. I didn't write it. Oh my god, like, isn't that like so chilling? Isn't that so chilling? And while Emma is scrolling her Facebook, she sees that one of the last posts that Sutton made was only, like, I think a few hours before, saying, ever wish you could run away? Sometimes I do. And then Sutton on her is like, if I'd written it only a few hours before, it meant I hadn't been dead for long. So, like, one good question about this is, how long has Sutton been dead? Like, when did this happen? Because even Sutton can't really fully remember everything. Sometimes we get flashbacks during the book. Sometimes Sutton might hear a phrase or a word that someone says and is like taken back to what happened before while she was alive. So Emma, she goes to where Sutton lives and she is going through some woods and she comes across Charlotte's dad. Like, so there's a character called Charlotte, she's one of Sutton's friends, but she comes across Charlotte's dad and Charlotte's dad is like, what are you doing here, Sutton? And he seemed quite confused about seeing Sutton. So there's a little part of me that's like, major red flag here. Like, why is he surprised to see Sutton? Does that mean he killed her? And he's like, whoa, how the hell are you alive right now? Is that, you know what I mean? And a little bit later on as well, again, I've got a theory, we find out that Charlotte's dad has been in Tokyo, I think that's what he said, Tokyo for about a month. And he isn't there in town. But yet, Emma saw him in the woods just before her friends kidnap, like Sutton's friends kidnap Emma, thinking that she's Sutton. But like, that's so suspicious, isn't it? That's a little bit weird. He's supposed to be out of the country, and yet the first person Emma comes across is someone who is surprised to see Sutton. Is he out of the country as an alibi, maybe? Or because Sarah Shepard does love twins, maybe, because I'm pretty sure Charlotte's dad looks like someone that Emma knows too. So maybe the person who's Charlotte's dad in the woods isn't actually Charlotte's dad, but the person that Emma vaguely knows because he looked familiar, and they're twins. Like, maybe Charlotte's dad and this person are twins, and yeah, maybe Charlotte's dad really is in a different country right now, if I'm right. I'm telling you, I can't remember anything from the TV show. I'm reading this, nothing is coming back to me. Absolutely nothing. Nothing whatsoever is coming back to me. It's like I didn't even watch it, but I did. I definitely did. So yeah, Emma, that's the first person that she bumps into. But then right after that, Sutton's friends kidnap Emma and think that she's Sutton. And it's kind of funny because Emma has to like try to pretend to be Sutton since the Facebook message said, don't tell anyone who you are, could be dangerous. So we meet Charlotte, we meet Madeline, who is another friend, and you learn about the Lion Game, not just now, a little bit later on. But the Lion Game is essentially the four of them. It's Sutton, Charlotte, Madeline, and Laurel, who is Sutton's younger sister. They have the Lion Game where they pull pranks on other people, essentially, and they try to like one-up each other, and it's just like a really nasty, mean game that they do. Like, later on as well, there is a girl called Nisha who is their sworn enemy, and they do this like really awful prank on her involving a fake dead body, fake blood, and they hired someone from Craigslist to pretend to be a police officer, almost arresting Nisha. So it's like just like mean, awful, nasty stuff. But that's like the friendship group. That's who they are. There's also Gabriella and Liliana, who are the Twitter twins. So again, more twins. Sarah Shepard loves twins in Pretty Little Liars. She loves twins in The Lion Game. And Emma, yeah, she isn't the kind of person who's like Sutton. Sutton's a total opposite. Emma's quite nice. But seeing Emma try to emulate being a bitch, when Madeline's like, who are you writing to? And why are you using a BlackBerry? I thought you got rid of that thing. And Emma's like, wouldn't you love to know, bitch? I love the fact that being a mean girl is just calling other people bitch. But I love seeing Emma slide into Sutton's life, especially since Sutton was raised in various different foster families. She didn't have the best upbringing. A lot of the family she lived with was poor. Apparently she didn't have a proper meal before. Apparently she didn't really get to celebrate her birthday before. But now as Sutton, she's getting to experience all these things. Like, she has a really stable family. She has a younger sister called Laurel, as I've said. Her parents seem pretty good. She has a nice house. So it's kind of fun to see Emma experience all of that for the first time. I quite like Emma. Oh, and it's so messy as well, considering Sutton has a boyfriend called Garrett, and now Emma's like, wait, what? I now have to pretend that Garrett is my boyfriend. Like, we have to be boyfriend and go, what? But I mean, Sutton's a very awful person. Like, she is awful. So the way that she is like flaky with Garrett, the way she kind of pushes him away, kind of makes sense to her character. So Emma doesn't really have to, you know, try too hard or like feign any kind of romance with him, because she's just very dismissive, which is what Sutton would have been like. Especially since we find out that Garrett dumped Charlotte for Sutton, and yet Charlotte and Sutton are still friends, although Sutton thinks that her friends are out to get her, so they are potential suspects, and Charlotte is high up on the list, especially with her dad apparently being out of the country, but apparently maybe he is, maybe as a twin, I don't know. Charlotte having her heart broken, the fact that Garrett dumped her for Sutton, and also Charlotte randomly appears every now and then. So when Sutton and Garrett are on a picnic, Charlotte is just like randomly there, like she randomly comes by. And it's so weird. And then Garrett's like, sometimes she calls me, but she doesn't say anything and puts the phone down. That's weird. So she's the main suspect for me right now, but also, I don't know if that's a red herring. Like, that could be a big red herring. Anyway, I tell you who I do ship Emma with. Ethan Landry. So there is a guy who people call like the rebel without a cause. And something was to happen between Sutton and Ethan, because Sutton's like, we haven't spoken in ages. Like, why are you talking to me for? But also Emma actually has like chemistry with him. They bond over certain things. He offers to teach her like tennis stuff, even though she's supposed to be like really good at tennis. Obviously Emma isn't, Sutton is. So again, that's like kind of comedic. But Ethan's like, oh, well, you can be my tennis partner, we can practice and stuff. So like they do, and it's great. But also they bond over like poetry. And Ethan's like, you're a little bit different to your usual self. You're apparently more complex than you let on, Sutton. And Emma's like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So I'm kind of shipping Emma with Ethan, but there's a part of me that's keeping an eye on Ethan as well. There are sometimes he seems a little bit sketchy. Like when Emma's ID and everything goes missing because now she can't prove who she is. Ethan is nearby. Like, it's right before we meet Ethan. So I'm like, did he take them? We also have a little bit of a Ethan Mona A reveal moment towards the end of the book. I'll get to it at that point, but I got Mona vibes. I got Mona in the car with Spencer vibes from that, just saying. I love that Sarah Shepard is covering her back with this. One of my criticisms with Pretty Little Liars was like, why don't they just go to the police? You know what I mean? In this one, Emma does go to the police. She tries, but unfortunately Sutton, being the little cow she is, has already been to the police so many times, giving false reports on other people, really wasting their time. So when Emma comes to tell them about, you know, the fact that Sutton is missing and she's really called Emma, they don't believe her. And it's kind of a girl who cried wolf kind of situation. So I really love the fact that Sarah Shepard's like covered her back in this. She can't just call the police because Sutton has lied to so many people that it's put Emma in a really difficult spot. It pretty much gives the sense that everybody has a motive to want Sutton dead. And now that Emma's kind of like filled her role, it also gives the impression that Emma is in immense danger right now. Especially since we have almost A-like messages. Laurel gives Emma a piece of paper that Laurel says she found on her car. But again, like, did she? Did Laurel find it? Or did Laurel plant it there? Did Laurel write the note? I don't know. However, the note says, Sutton's dead, tell no one, keep playing along or you're next. So we do have the element of danger. She is now forced to pretend to be Sutton no matter what. And it's also the kind of jaw-dropping moment when Emma's like, oh shit, Sutton's dead? What? And also gives our first flashback with Sutton, where Sutton is with all of her friends, including Laurel, and they're out in the woods and they're having fun, and they take a photo all together. And when Sutton shows them all, Laurel says that Sutton cut her out of the picture, and Laurel's like, oh, but you didn't get me in it. And Sutton's like, yeah, I planned it. I was like, what a bitch. But then Sutton also notices that Laurel has a similar kind of locket on, and Sutton can't stand that. So Sutton grabs her locket, pulls it off her neck, and throws it in the woods. Like, how mean, like, how cruel to do that to your sister. That's just so mean. And that's when Sutton is ambushed and she is kind of kidnapped a little bit, and that's where the video comes into it. And I will explain more of that later on too. I'm going to keep you on the edge of your seat too. Oh my god. And we're trying to go as chronological as possible because you do get different bits of information, then you get to recontextualize everything. So as Emma is digging a little bit more, she does come across a boy called Thea, who is Madeline's brother. Madeline is one of Sutton's friends. And we did see on Sutton's Facebook wall, back when Emma first discovered Sutton, that Thea had been missing since June. So it has been a couple of months since then. He's been missing for a couple of months. And we find out that Laurel had a thing for Thea. And I'm getting like, again, major red flags, like, what happened to Thea? How did he go missing? Is he actually missing or is he just hiding? Is he planning something against Sutton? Like, is he the one who killed her? He's kind of like faked his own disappearance in order to kill Sutton maybe. But then also Laurel seems very sketchy too. And Laurel had a thing for Thea, so maybe she's in on it also. Just one of the many theories that I have. And I quite like Laurel as well. Like, she seems a little bit odd sometimes, like in the middle of the night, Emma wakes up with Laurel's hand over her mouth, and Laurel's like, oh, I wanted to wish you a happy birthday, and Emma's like, you were trying to kill me, weren't you? And I was like, no, I wasn't. But Laurel does want to be like her big sister. She gave me that same eager, loyal, you're the big sister, and I want to be just like you look, as she was given to Emma now. So bless her, that does seem quite sweet, but hang on to your horses, because it could turn pretty drastic later on, I'm just saying. I'm not really feeling the whole Garrett and Emma thing. Garrett is trying to be all mysterious and is like, oh, remember that thing we talked about during the summer? I think you're right. I'm ready. And stuff like that. I'm like, what did they plan? Turns out it'd just be sex. They wanted to have like their first time together, which is sweet. But again, Emma is not Sutton. Emma is not Sutton. Don't worry, Emma doesn't do it. She doesn't go through with it, thank God. But that would have been so messy if she did. But also, I'm wondering if there's going to be some tension between Ghost Sutton and Emma, because Sutton is like, he's mine and I want him to stay mine. And she likes Garrett because he's a little bit damaged in all this and the other. So I'm like, is Sutton going to end up resenting Emma? Because Emma is filling the Sutton role in everyone's life. She's kind of just like instantly replaced her. So I'm wondering if some resentment will start coming through with Sutton and she'll start getting territorial and stuff maybe. I don't know. That would be amazing if so. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Ghost Sutton tries to kill Emma? I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. It sounds so ridiculous. I am a little worried that this whole thing, this whole mystery is just one big joke. Because Charlotte mentions to Emma, who she thinks is Sutton, what happened to that great thing you bragged about all summer? The ultimate gotcha. And I'm like, if this narrator wasn't dead Sutton, I would think this whole thing was a joke and it was all a big prank for Sutton to get back at all of her friends by finding her twin sister, pretend she's dead, making her twin sister replace her. I would have hated that. But fortunately, because the narrator is Sutton and she is dead, it does show that it can't just be a gotcha. Maybe it started out as a gotcha. Maybe it started out as a lying game joke that ended up with her dead. But the ultimate prank thing is very intriguing. I kind of want to know more about that, just in case that is the key to this mystery. Even Ghost Sutton doesn't know. Emma's suspicions crash into my own. Did I know about her before I died? Had I somehow lured her here and then fallen victim to my own prank? So there are so many gaps in Sutton's memory that doesn't help us as readers. She's pretty much figuring out this mystery herself as we're going along too. Obviously, Sarah Shepard has to keep up the suspense. We have like a random sleepover. Emma is by herself and someone comes up behind her and says, Sutton's dead, keep being her until I tell you different and don't try and skip town again or you're next. Because yeah, Emma does try and skip town, but it doesn't work. She gets caught. So she really is trapped there. She can't do anything. She can't leave. She can't go with the police. What is she supposed to do? You know, like she has to continue going forward while trying to solve this mystery. Emma also theorizes that the person who said that to her was probably one of her friends in the house because it doesn't look like anyone broke in to say that to her. So potentially, whoever had strangled Emma was indeed someone inside the house, one of my very best friends. That's what Ghost Sutton says. And Sutton can't say things that Emma can't say. So it's almost like she's not exactly I don't know how it works. She's not exactly inhabiting her body. She is observing things. But if Emma can't see, neither can Sutton. So like when Emma was kidnapped earlier in the book and she was blindfolded, Sutton also couldn't see what was happening. Her own vision went black. So they're very connected in what they see and hear and all of that. So I don't know how it works, but I'm not going to ask too many questions. If I probe too much, it will probably be a plot hole. Ignorance is bliss. I love the fact that Emma gets so fed up with everything that's going on, to the point where she goes onto Sutton's Facebook and as a sort of, I'm not going to back down, you can terrorize me, but you ain't shit. This is what Emma writes on Sutton's Facebook page. Game on, bitches. Like, how Pretty Little Liars is that? That is so Pretty Little Liars. Game on, bitches. I just fucking love it, okay? It's just so quintessentially Sarah Shepard. And it does give Emma a bit more agency. I am really enjoying her at this point. Like, she isn't just allowing things to happen to her now. She is seriously like, okay, I'm sick of this shit. Hit me with your best shot. A couple of big clues that I think could be interesting. In one of my theories, especially going back to Becky, Emma's and well, it must be Sutton's real mother too, if they're twins. Becky has to be the parent of both of them. There is a really random moment when they're in school, when they're in class and Mrs. Frost is teaching the class. So you see, Medea had to kill her children. It was the only way Medea could get back at her husband, Jason, for his betrayal. And I'm like, Medea had to kill her children. And I do think Sarah Shepard likes to use a lot of literary allusions and allegories in her books. Like, she likes to harken back to literature. And I find that so interesting that we start chapter 23 with Medea had to kill her children. So now I'm thinking, is Becky back? Like, Emma has a little bit of a vision, like a ghost vision of Becky later on and says everything's about to be dangerous. And obviously that whole thing isn't real, but maybe Becky is still alive and she killed Sutton. Medea had to kill her children. It was the only way Medea could get back at her husband, Jason, for his betrayal. Maybe that's a clue. Maybe that's me reading too much into it. And also, why do I get the feeling that Charlotte's dad may actually be the real dad of Emma and Sutton? Or like Charlotte's dad's potential twin, if he has a twin? Like, why am I getting those vibes? Like, maybe that's their real parents. Maybe I've cracked the case, I don't know. But also, there is a photo of Laurel wearing Sutton's locket, the one that she was strangled with in the video, so that could be a clue against her also. The big reveal in this book is to do with that video, right? Well, we come across the whole video on Laurel's computer, the one with sound, and it turns out that Laurel is the one who is like strangling Sutton in the video, and Charlotte and Madeline are also there and they're egging her on. They're egging her on to strangle Sutton, and then yeah, Sutton's on the ground, she's coughing, and that's when like the original video ended. And a little bit after that, you see a guy come and then the video ends. So this makes Emma think that her friends, Charlotte, Madeline, and her sister Laurel, and this other guy killed Sutton. That was her kind of conclusion. However, that's when we get Ethan picking up Emma. And this is when I'm getting my Mona reveals to be a flash. Oh my god, spoilers for Pretty Little Lies, by the way. I should have probably said that earlier. When Mona revealed that she was A to Spencer, she was driving in the car, and I was getting those vibes. Emma says, I think you took a wrong turn. No, I didn't, Ethan said. Ethan, this is the wrong way. Stop the car now. And it's like this really tense moment between them. And then Ethan does stop the car. He just says, you're not Sutton, are you? You can't be. So he's kind of figured out that Emma isn't really Sutton. So we have another flashback with Sutton, and we see Ethan, he does come he's the guy at the end of the video who kind of stops them. And we have Charlotte being like, gotcha! And Madeline and Laurel are all like saying, oh, this is one big joke. This is one big joke. And Sutton also seems to be playing along with it, even though she doesn't really say anything. But it turns out that this video was just a prank. And Ethan is like, well, that couldn't have been when Sutton died because she was fine afterwards. The video was taken like 2 weeks ago. So it's like, oh my god, this is like the one big piece of evidence and you're telling me it isn't even the night that Sutton died. This was our big clue. So Laurel, Charlotte, Madeline, they were just pulling this big prank in this video and it doesn't indicate whether or not they did actually kill Sutton. The whole thing isn't really a big clue. I mean, maybe it could come back. Maybe there is something to take from it. But at the minute, it does seem like Ethan had saved Sutton at the end of the video. And yeah, Ethan's also saying as well, because this is where the chemistry comes in between Ethan and Emma, the way that he figured out that it was not Sutton, he was saying something seemed off, different, the way you talked about bitch stars, your sense of humour. Every time I saw you after that, I kept getting the same nagging feeling. You were sweet and funny and interesting and remorseful. The Sutton I knew, everyone knew, wouldn't have felt bad about anything ever. So I started to wonder if she had multiple personalities or had had, like, a spiritual awakening that made her not so hard. He pressed his thumbs into his eye sockets. Whatever happened, I started to kind of fall for her. As in Emma. Like this version of Sutton / Emma. I'm like, oh my god. Oh my god, he's like professing that he's liking Emma. Like he's actually falling for Emma. As Emma, not as Sutton. It's like, oh, that's so sweet. That is so sweet. But I'm still gonna keep an eye on you. He could still be a murderer. I'm not saying her friends didn't kill Sutton, but if they did, it wasn't the night the video was made. That happened 2 weeks before you got here, and everyone left after I stopped it. Sutton included, she was fine. She left with them? Yeah. So like, why in the world did they do that whole prank video with Sutton involved? So like, we do need that mystery answered, because Sutton wouldn't just allow herself to get strangled by her sister to the point of near death, while her friends just recorded it. Sutton would not have stood for that. And why would they even do that to her as the ringleader unless they actually wanted to kill her? You know what I mean? It's like, some things don't add up. Like, I need to know more about it. And now Ethan, now he knows everything. He knows Sutton's dead. He knows Emma is Emma, not Sutton. He's going to help her. He's going to be part of her investigation, which is great. And he says, hear me out. If Sutton's really dead, maybe whoever did this is trying to frame you for her murder. And it's like, oh my god, yes. Maybe they are. Maybe that's why she is here. Maybe they're trying to frame her. But also, it's like the whole no body, no crime. If people think Sutton's alive, they're not going to look for a body. And they could just literally get away with murder. So that is pretty much how we end this book. Like so much information. So much information, so many things. Like, I need to know what happened to Thea. Is he actually missing? Is Laurel trying to kill his sister? Or Sutton's friends trying to kill her? Is Emma going to get framed for murder? Where is Sutton's body? Is Ethan a good guy, a bad guy? Is Becky, the birth mother, is she actually gone? Is she dead? Or is she trying to get revenge for something? Like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Honestly, I was not expecting how good this would be. Get yourself a refill. We're going back in. Never Have I Ever, the second book in the series. I was a little bit unsure of to begin with. I was like, oh, this isn't going to live up to the first book. It's not as messy. But then the book started going on. And by the end of it, I was like, damn, Sarah Shepard knew what she was doing. But Never Have I Ever... It's so hard to say. But Never Have I Ever deals with Emma trying to find out the alibis of all of her friends to see what they were doing on the day that... Well, Emma has narrowed it down to August 31st for the day that Sutton died. I'm not 100% sure it's 100% confirmed because Emma does do some deductions. Like, she's very smart. She's actually a very smart protagonist. She would fit in well in the Pretty Little Liars verse. But she narrows it down because going through Sutton's phone, the last phone call that Sutton answered was at 4:32 p.m. on August 31st. So she kind of deduced that that was the day that she died. However, I feel like you can't really take too much stakes on the timeline of these books because there are quite a few plot holes already and some of the timelines just don't add up. For example, in the first book, it was September 10th because it was Emma's birthday. And in this book, it's one day after the events of the first book. However, it's only 2 weeks until Halloween Homecoming. So we kind of just skipped a whole month. We've skipped all of the rest of September. We've skipped the entirety of the start of October. And now it's only 2 weeks until Halloween Homecoming. So I don't know, it just doesn't really add up. Because yeah, it was literally the day before when Emma ran out of Laurel's room and she like went out the window and she stepped all over the flowers in the garden. And Sutton's mum even points that out. And so it was like stated that it was only a day since the first book. And yet, again, It's fine. It's fine. Trying to not be too anal about like the times and the dates, even though this is a murder mystery, so dates and times are very important. Let's just try and keep up, okay? This isn't just book logic, this is Sarah Shepard logic. A couple of intriguing things were introduced in this book. One of them I'm kind of a little bit disappointed by, and the other one I am honestly so emotional about, because one of them is Madeline. So Madeline is Thea's sister. Thea's the one who went missing. And Madeline, she flinches whenever her dad is near, and she's secretly smoking. And I kind of figured from the very beginning that her dad was doing something. And it does turn out that her dad is quite abusive. And the night Sutton died, Madeline was trying to call Sutton for help. And Madeline ended up calling Charlotte instead. So we find out pretty early on that Charlotte and Madeline have, they have an alibi. I mean, I don't think it completely rules them out, but Madeline was going through things. She wanted to talk to someone. Charlotte came over and helped her. So that's kind of their alibi for the night. So we can kind of rule them out as suspects. We can also rule out Laurel and Nisha as suspects as well, because later on when they go to Nisha's, Nisha has a photo from August 31st of this sleepover that Sutton obviously didn't go to, but it does confirm that Laurel and Nisha were at that sleepover. But again, like, I don't think that completely rules them out either, because at any point during that day, they could have killed Sutton. They could have just taken an hour out of their time to do the deed. The person I'm most suspicious about, and I'm kind of sad about it because I am shipping Emma and Ethan so much, is Ethan. Like, I find him so suspicious. His alibi was apparently, it was the first night of the meteor shower, so I was watching them. I was like, okay, but who can corroborate that? How can you confirm that you were just watching the stars? And it does feel like he's kind of pulling the strings a little bit. So when Emma is talking to him about the other suspects, it does seem like he's kind of like pushing her in those directions. Like, he tells her about like how suspicious Charlotte can be and how suspicious Madeline can be, and they're a bit like the kind of like black swan people, and you know what I mean? It's just, I feel like he is trying to orchestrate a lot of things and he's pushing Emma in a certain direction. It's not confirmed though, because there is romance blossoming between them, and that would be quite shocking if it did turn out that Ethan was the murderer and he is kind of manipulating everything behind the scenes. That would be very shocking. I mean, would it be shocking? I kind of figured it out if it's true, but yeah, it would still be shocking to read, because it's so sad what they've done to Sutton, because even though she was a terrible person, it's so heartbreaking to read her narrative, because she says things like, oh, I wish I could do things with my sister. I wish I could be with Laurel and Emma right now doing these things. Oh, I'll never be able to go to prom again. Yeah, there are so many things that she didn't get to experience because her life was tragically cut short. And that's something that's very easy to forget when reading something as like kind of trashy, fun, not that serious kinds of reads like this one. It's very easy to forget that the beating heart of this story is sisters, and them never getting a chance to meet because one of them gets killed before they knew of each other. And so there's just like an element of sadness there. It probably does give it a bit of an edge over Pretty Little Liars, because you really do feel the melancholy in the text because, you know, Sutton's our narrator. So yeah, I have to give her props for that. So what I love about Emma is that she is actively trying to investigate. So she does find out that Sutton got arrested for shoplifting at a store called Click on August 31st. She goes to Click where she meets Samantha. Keep that in mind, keep Samantha's name in your brain. She meets Samantha, and Samantha's like, what are you doing here? You shoplifted the last time. And she kind of knows Ethan as well. So that's interesting. So Samantha reveals that Sutton was there with a couple of friends, but she doesn't know which friends they were. So Emma's like, okay, how am I going to find this out? What she does is kind of clever in a way, but also, I don't know about this, but she does purposefully shoplift in front of Samantha so that she would get arrested and taken to the police station. And when she's at the police station and the officer comes into the room with her file, she pretends that she's choking, so he leaves the room to get her some water, and she rummages through this file to find out about something called the train prank. Okay, so the train prank is introduced into this book, and a little bit like that bloody video in the first book, this train prank doesn't really go anywhere. It does turn out to be, again, I think another big red herring. The thing is with these books is that there is so much focus and time spent on these clues and these mysteries that you just don't feel comes to a very satisfying conclusion, and you almost feel like you've just wasted your entire time. And I'm sure there will still be some things about it coming up, and you know, it did still add character development to Sutton and the relationship she has with her friends. It's building up the lying game a little bit more. But this train prank, what this turns out to be, is that Sutton, she's driving with Charlotte, Madeline, I think Laurel was in the car too, and the Twitter twins, so Gabby and Liliana. I'll just call them Gabby and Lily. So they were also in the car, but Gabby and Lily aren't part of the Lion game, but they desperately want to be. And so Sutton is driving in this car, and they are just crossing over some train tracks, because, you know, like when those barriers come down and stuff, and you know what I mean. So the car stops on the train tracks, and then the barriers come down, and Sutton's like, oh my god, the car won't start, and everyone's freaking out, like, oh my god, the train's coming, like, come on, get it starting. And then Sutton's like trying to open the door, she's like, oh, I can't open the door, and all this, that, and the other. It's like, oh my god, a girl. Turns out that was a fucking prank. And she even said the safe word. So they have a safe word whenever they're doing the Lion game, so they have to say, cross my heart, hope to die, and that means that they are telling the truth. And Sutton said that, she said, cross my heart, hope to die, the thing won't start, it's just died. And then nearly at the last minute, when they could have all been killed, Sutton starts a car and drives off the tracks. Come on, girl. And then Sutton's like, oh, but rules are meant to be broken. Do I know how I did it? Wasn't that like an awesome prank? Like, no. Like, these pranks are so juvenile, but also like incredibly dangerous and stupid. Why would you do that? Like, this is all teen drama and stuff like that, but that whole prank stuff, all the prank stuff that's going on is seriously starting to piss me off, because it makes you think that when you do have something that's worth chasing, like a clue that's worth chasing, a character will turn around and just say, gotcha, it was just a prank. It's a bit like, you know, at the minute with all of these TikTok crazes where people are doing these crazy TikTok pranks and they're like, oh, it's just a prank. Is it though? Is it not just assault? Honestly, this whole prank culture needs to bloody stop. And I sound like such a boring adult, I know, but the whole thing was stupid. So when they get out of the car, Gabby's missing. Well, they do find her. She's having a fit on the floor. She's having a seizure. And it turns out that she does have epilepsy, which was lying dormant in her this entire time. And potentially, this whole train experience triggered that epilepsy. And so Sutton is probably to blame for Gabby having epilepsy. I don't know how that works. I don't know if that's like accurate or not, but it does give Gabby and Lily motive to have Sutton dead or want her dead. And they do act very weird. They have these secret Twitter accounts, which again, like, this is so stupid. So they have secret Twitter accounts. The Twitter account handles are just their nicknames that everybody knows about. So Emma finds it and she's like, oh, this is how they communicate when they don't want anyone to read their messages. They use their secret Twitter account. I'm like, they're twins, they live together, they're sisters. They could just text each other. If they don't want anyone to read what they're writing, why would you put it on Twitter? Even on a secret account, you can still find it. Wow, it has just turned so dark and it is pouring with rain right now. Pouring. I'm supposed to be going out in like half an hour. I'm going to say a show and now I'm going to be dripping wet. Can you hear that? What was I even talking about? Oh yeah, so they have their secret Twitter accounts that are so easy to find. So this entire book, it looks like they're the main suspect. So I was instantly like, okay, it's not them then. Because Sarah Shepard is not gonna make a book focused on them being suspects and make it them in the end. So we can already scratch them off. But they do still act weird. They have the dance and this weird light fixture almost falls on Emma and she gets hurt. Emma does leave, but then the party just continues on. Like, where are the adults? Where are the teachers? Like, this whole health and safety hazard has just happened. A light fixture is just falling off the wall. Even the adults are just like, oh, you know, it's like an old building and stuff. It's fine. But like, the party goes on. Honestly, it's so weird. Oh my god, do you want to know something like really, really scandalous though? Guess who Ethan brings to homecoming? Samantha. The person from Click, the person who calls the police on Emma. He goes to homecoming with her because Emma did tell Ethan, look, everything's a bit too dangerous right now. We can't be together. As much as I do like you, we can't do this. We can't do this. You'd be in danger. So Ethan's like, okay, that's fine. I respect your wishes. And so, yeah, he asks Samantha to go to homecoming with him, even though Emma's also like, oh, you know, maybe we should go together. Sorry, already asked someone else. So that was quite scandalous. But also Garrett. So Garrett, who was Sutton's boyfriend, who wanted to sleep with Sutton / Emma in the previous book, and Emma kind of like broke up with him. Like, he's hurt. He's obviously like devastated that it was all built up to and then didn't happen. Can I just give a tip to anyone watching this who feels like they are owed sex from their partners? Even if you're in a relationship, if somebody doesn't want to have sex with you, they just don't want to have sex with you, okay? Don't force it. Don't act like a brat and ask about your Grand Theft Auto game after they don't want to sleep with you. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, there are things behind the scenes because Garrett thinks that Sutton played with his heart because she did that apparently with Thea. Apparently she did that with Thea. But at the end of the day, don't act like brat. If someone says no, that means no. It doesn't matter if you were looking forward to it. Sort yourself out. Never pressure anyone to have sex with you. And don't act like a little spoiled brat when they say no. Come on. So I don't like Garrett. All sympathy for him went out the window when he was like, oh, I went with Nisha to make you jealous. Just like, can you fucking grow up? I know they're teens, but like, surely he must be 18 as well, at least. If they're in the same classes, if they're in the same year at school, must be around about 17 or 18. Grow the fuck up. So anyway, and even though I know a lot of these characters are acting younger than they are, like these stupid fucking pranks, seriously? So back to Gabby and Lily, somehow they find out that Sutton was snooping on their Twitters, and so they like took them down. But I'm like, how in the world do you find that out? How do you find out that someone looked at your profile on Twitter? Like, that isn't really a thing, is it? And this was back in 2011, 2010. So, like, that's even harder to do. Like, there are some things I don't understand. Gabby and Lily would have had to have, like, CCTV footage on Sutton/Emma all the time to know that she was snooping on the Twitter. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But they do act really sketchy. They offered to take Emma to the impound place where her car, well, where Sutton's car is supposed to be. Because yeah, this entire time, Emma's been getting lifts off Laurel, her sister, because she doesn't have access to her car. It's at the impound or wherever it is. So the Twitter twins do take Emma there, and they act weird the entire time. Like, it's really, like, they take their eye off the road and, like, make it really dangerous, just to, like, kind of intimidate Emma. And then Emma gets to the impound, and she goes to get her car, but the guy there is like, oh, you picked this up like a month ago. You picked this up on August 31st. There's no signature. It's not here. So Emma's like, okay, so Sutton must have picked up her car on that day. Why? Like, and why does nobody know where it is? Like, what happened with his car? We do find out later that Ethan tells her that Samantha told him that, this is so hard to keep track of, that Sutton had hit someone with her car and almost killed them. And there's kind of a sneaky suspicion that that might have been Thea. You know, Madeline's brother who went missing on June 17th or something. So that's really interesting. So now we need to find Sutton's freaking car before we can even get to even looking for her car and even to know where to begin looking. Again, this is like kind of a stupid idea, but now looking back on it, it kind of makes sense given the outcome of it. So Charlotte, Madeline, Gabby, Lily, and Emma as Sutton. And I think Laurel was there as well. They are going to some springs, some hot springs in the middle of the night, which are like in these mountains. And they're going there in the middle of the night as a sort of like tradition thing, and Lily and Gabby beg to come, so they're like, okay, you can come, that's fine. And plus they know where the best hot springs are, so like, okay, come with. So on the way there, they're driving, and Gabby and Lily start acting really strange. Like, they're fighting with each other, they're arguing, and it's so obviously staged. I was rolling my eyes at this part, I was like, what are they doing? Like, come on. And so Lily gets out of the car and she's like, okay, screw you guys, I'm leaving. And they continue on to the hot springs. And they get to the hot springs. Gabby is kind of like leading the way. And Gabby's like, oh, in order to get there, you have to jump over this cliff. And bear in mind, it's the middle of the night. Their flashlights are dying. They barely have service. It's like, what are you doing? Like, this is the stupidest idea in the world. So some of them jump over the cliff. Now it's just Emma and Gabby who have to jump over this cliff. And then Gabby grabs Emma's arm and says, not so fast or something like that. And Emma looks at her and thinks that Gabby's about to push her. So instead, Emma pushes Gabby off the cliff. Emma pushes Gabby off the cliff. So nobody really gets to say like exactly how that happened. Everyone's like, oh my god, like what happened? Like, is Gabby okay? Like they hear crashing and they can hear like noises and stuff. And they're like, oh my god, like, what happened? Like, how did you do that, Emma? What happened? So Emma's like totally flustered and she like doesn't know what's going on. So they're all like splitting up. They're like calling the police and they're trying to look for Gabby. And then Emma's by herself. She hears Gabby, so she goes down. It mustn't be that big of a drop, but she goes down and she discovers like this little cave thing where Gabby is. So she goes in. Turns out Lily's there, and they get Emma. They start strangling her. They start strangling her with the locket, like what happened in that original video. And then out of nowhere, they're like, gotcha. It was a fucking prank. It all was a fucking prank. Even the pushing off the cliff, Gabby had jumped down when that happened and landed on the ledge below. And Lily like was throwing rocks and stuff down to make it sound like Gabby had fallen. But I'm just like, that is so weird, because how would she know that Emma was going to push her? And also, anyway, Emma didn't know that that was going to happen. Emma actually literally pushed her off a cliff. So, like, it was just a fucking joke. And then freaking Charlotte, Madeline, and I think Laurel as well, come in and they're like, haha, we were in on it too. Like, this was all a big prank. Oh, I was done. I was done, like, fuck the lot of you. And, like, they were strangling Emma. Like, she was choking. Like, how is that a prank? That's abuse. That's a... That's not even funny. It's not even a joke. All of these pranks are fucking shit. They're absolutely dangerous. One of these days, someone's gonna end up dead. Sorry, Sutton. Anyway, all said and done, we do find out that neither Lily or Gabby cut the light in the dance thing that nearly landed on Emma. Neither of them did that. So we still have to find out who did that, who like tried to kill Emma at the dance thing. But fast forward, we get to the end, okay? So I felt like a lot of this book was a whole bunch of nothing, considering the train prank was kind of a non-issue, really. I know it's like trying to set up a motive, but it seems like Gabby and Lily don't really blame Sutton too much for it at the end. And the whole Gabby and Lily being suspects anyway just turned out to be one big prank. So, honestly, if the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th books have anything else like that, I'm gonna flip my lid. I will. I'm gonna be so pissed off. But yeah, it seems like the majority of this book was just like a non-thing, you know? Like, we didn't learn anything else really, except at the very, very end. So, couple of things. We have Ethan come to Emma, and they're chatting, and it's kind of sweet. Like, again, I am rooting for it. When Ethan is like apologizing for taking Sam to the homecoming, he says, I'm sorry about Sam, but she really is just a friend. And Emma's like, I don't care. And Ethan said, and his voice cracks, so he's emotional. Well, I want you to care. I mean, I want you to care that we're not together. I'm like, oh my God, that's kind of sweet. And he says, I know you have your doubts, but I can't let you go. I can't stand by and just be friends. And then they kiss. And even Sutton, like, I love that Sutton is like rooting for them. Like, she's in the background. She's like, yes, go on, go girl. You know, like, she's like really rooting for her sister to have this romance. And she's kind of like filling in for our role as well as readers. Like, I am rooting for the romance because Emma hasn't really had a good romance before. So I'm like, okay, I want Emma to live. I want her to be happy. But yeah, Emma brushed her lips softly against Ethan's. Ethan slid his hands up to his shoulders and kissed her more deeply. Emma's whole body sparked and came alive. And then Sutton's like, yes, I cheered next to them. It was about time. But someone is watching. You hear snapping and stuff. So Ethan leaves. Emma goes in the house. And like, again, I find Ethan hella suspicious anyway. Ethan's bright, loyal eyes. Ethan was the most amazing guy Emma ever met. Like, I feel like we're being spoon-fed all of these lovely things about Ethan to make us feel like he is a loyal and safe guy, and he probably isn't. And the fact that he even just like leaves, like there is obviously someone watching and it's kind of scary, like the whole thing is kind of scary, and he just like leaves. Like he just leaves Emma to go back into her house and he just like takes off. Emma's in the house, she realizes that there's a window wide open and there is a figure who stepped up the ravine. Like it is actually kind of like horror movie tense, this whole section. Window was wide open, and then guess who it is? Guess who it is? I'll give you 5 seconds to guess who it is. Even like write a comment in the comment section to give your guess. Let me know who your guess is, okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There. The boy who went missing on June 17th, Madeline's brother, Thea, who Sutton had apparently played with his emotions and crushed his soul, was potentially the reason why he left. Thea, he's broken into Sutton's house, and he says, shh, it's me, a low voice growled. The hands loosened their grip and spun Emma. Her body went rigid. She took a second to process the hulking boy with dark hair, blinking deep-set hazel eyes. Blah, 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 blah. Now here he was, smiling a strange, jagged smile. The kind of smile that hinted that he knew absolutely everything about her, including exactly who she wasn't. Thea, Emma whispered. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, there's like a tiny little epilogue that isn't really much. It's just Sutton wondering if she did hit Thea with her car, if the rumor was true. I imagine we'll find out in the next book that that's not true. She probably didn't even hit him with her car. Like, I'm ready to be lied to in the next book for the majority of it. Just for someone to turn around and be like, gotcha, at the end. Honestly, I'm triggered by Goosebumps. Goosebumps did that all the time. Because yeah, I do have a video reading all of the Goosebumps books. In fact, I have many videos reading all of the Goosebumps books. But that was book number 2. I'm giving it a 3-star because I don't like the fact that we are really heavily focusing on pranks, and I know that's a whole part of the story and a whole part of the Lion Game, but I'm kind of fed up now. I kind of just want the facts and I want the truth. I don't want to keep being told gotcha at the end of a book. Just to be like, well, okay then, what was the entire fucking point of the book then? I'm so sorry for my language, I really am. I'm just very passionate, okay? I'm a very passionate reader. But I'm sure there's like loads of things that I haven't mentioned. I have so many notes. And I kind of just want to give you the rundown. I want to tell you like as much as possible about what's happening in these books so you can follow along too without the need to read them yourselves. But no, I'm still having a fun time. Still, honestly, can't wait to find out everything about what's happened. Now, I'm not 100% sure what my predictions are. I still think Ethan might be my #1 suspect. So I hope book 3 gives us a little bit more, because it seems like Ethan and Emma are going to be a couple moving forward. But now Thea's back, I don't know about how that's going to be with the relationships and how tricky that is, because Laurel, who is Sutton's sister, did apparently have a thing for Thea. So there could be some kind of really weird love square going on here. Will Thea reveal that he's back, or will he continue hiding? Why is he hiding? It does seem like maybe he's hiding from his dad, because Madeline does say, oh, Thea got worse things from my dad, which is so heartbreaking. Honestly, it's heartbreaking. I just don't know what to think right now. I don't know who to trust. I don't even freaking trust Sarah Shepard half the time, you know what I mean? So let's crack on. Let's get to book 3. 2 truths and a lie. Except there better be no lying involved. I'm sick. There is some work being done on the house opposite, and there's a guy on the roof banging and everything. So if you hear any noise in the background, it's just that. They could not have picked a worse time to do it, because I am ready to talk about book 3, 2 truths and a lie. And this is getting 2.5 stars, because I feel like we're just back to square one every single book. Every single book, it feels like it's wasting my time. The majority of what the books are about are just a non-issue by the end of the book. But I do have my theories. I do think that Sarah Shepard is kind of placing some clues in amongst the massive red herrings that she just keeps using these books for. It's almost like watching filler episodes of Pretty Little Liars. That's what I felt like with book 2 and now with book 3. It just feels like we are getting filler episode after filler episode with maybe some like very distinct background clues that maybe we're not supposed to pick up on, because they're a little bit obvious. In a way, like, this was my suspect from the first book. You know, Ethan. It kind of tracks that these characters would jump to conclusions, make so many assumptions, and make a big deal out of nothing sometimes. So in this one, the cliffhanger of book 2 was the fact that Thea was back and he had broken into Sutton's house. We start off pretty much the exact same moment. At the start of this book, we have Sutton's parents and even Laurel and everyone coming downstairs to hear the commotion and seeing Thea. Thea does run away and gets caught by police, and I'm kind of surprised that that happened pretty quickly. I thought maybe we would spend the book with Thea kind of being back but nobody knowing where he is. I think that could have been a lot more of a suspenseful kind of storyline rather than him getting caught by police and then having like this really weird thing with Detective Quinlan, who is like the main police officer. And this is so stupid. Like, I don't understand how anyone thinks this way. But Detective Quinlan, so he was the person on Thea's missing person case the entire time he's been gone. And Quinlan is so pissed that he didn't find Thea, and the fact that he was away for this whole time. He decides to take it out on Thea by arresting him. I mean, yes, he did break and enter, but like, he arrests him, sets his bail at $15,000, and essentially berates him because Quinlan didn't find him while he was a missing person. So the way of punishing this boy who's been missing for 2 months, the way of punishing him is to set his bail ridiculously high and giving him jail time. Could you imagine if that happened in real life? Someone's been missing for months and then they come back home and the policeman who was on their case was so pissed off that they didn't actually solve it that they arrest you and hold you. And it's just like, it's so strange. And like the amount of thing, oh my god. This is, the police force in these novels are just terrible. So Emma gets Sutton's car, which was in evidence, you know, after it had been impounded, it was found, and there was actually blood on the hood of Sutton's car, and so the police have had it, and they finally gave it back to Emma during this book, and then Emma immediately finds a clue in the front seat. She's in the middle of driving, and just from the corner of her eye, she sees a slip of paper in between the seats, and I'm like, how the fuck did the police miss that? How did they miss that? It was literally right there. If Emma could spot it while driving, and she wasn't even looking at it, she just spotted it in the corner of her eye, how in the world did the police miss it? How? They've had it in evidence. Like, it's so funny. Also, like, the Greyhound ticket, so Thea, he does come back on August 31st, and this is like Sutton's flashback moments. So they happen in every book. So Sutton's flashbacks are on August 31st. Thea has gotten on a Greyhound and come back to Tucson. And I'm like, Thea is a missing person. He's been missing for, yeah, pretty much over 2 months at this point. And he gets on public transport. He gets on a Greyhound bus and gets off at the area. And you're telling me not a single person knew of him being back in town that day? Not a single person saw him on the Greyhound. Not a single person at the station saw him. He has been plastered all over national news. And he is a missing person, and he just steps off a greyhound where other people have also stepped off. Not a single person. Not one. And Charlie, what about the security cameras? What about the There is just so much negligence when it comes to the police force in these books that's starting to really piss me off. And again, I know they have to be dumbed down quite a lot for our main character Emma to figure it out herself, but I'm still like, these are genuinely obvious things that it's kind of just annoying at this point. And I'm also going to continue being annoyed with the police as the books go on, I imagine. But yeah, the main story of this is that Thea is back and he is being arrested. Emma is scared of him because she now thinks that he is the one who killed Sutton. And through Sutton's flashbacks, it's revealed that they go to, what's it called again? Sabino Canyon? Yeah, Sabino Canyon. So it was revealed that Sutton and Thea were in this really intense romantic relationship. Like, Sutton was all over him. She was kissing him, like her life depended on it. So like, they loved one another. So they go to Sabino Canyon. It's the one day that Thea is back in town for some reason. Like, it's not really even explained why he decided to randomly come back on this one day. Because when they get to Sabino Canyon, Sutton makes this remark about like, oh, if anyone falls over the cliff, no one will ever find their body. I'm like, okay, a little bit on the nose there. And they get into a little bit of a fight, and then Sutton hears a scream in the distance, which could have been an animal. So she tries to run away. Thea tries to stop her, so he's like clawing at her and like pretty much like being violent, and so like she's trying to run away even more, and like it just makes him look that much more suspicious. But again, like I feel like we have a set formula with the series at this point where it's kind of like, I mean, everyone's abusive in this town. Everyone does things like, remember in the first book when they had that snuff film and it was apparently just a prank that they would strangle almost the life out of Sutton? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, it seems like it's the most normalized thing to just like hurt other people, and it's like, okay. So yeah, Sutton does run towards her car through a weird series of events, and it's so like fragmented because it's all Sutton's flashbacks and they're sprinkled throughout the book, is that somebody gets into Sutton's car and nobody knows who it is. Like, Sutton doesn't know who it is, and she can't even see him. But the person who is driving Sutton's car runs Thea over, and Thea is still okay, but he has been hurt and his leg is bad. And so Thea ends up calling Laurel so that she can drive him out of town to a different hospital so nobody knows that he is back in town. And Sutton has to hide so that Laurel doesn't see her. However, Laurel does see her. When Laurel picks up Thea and takes him away, she spots Sutton. So Laurel knows that Sutton and Thea were together, and that kind of explains Laurel's behaviour in this book, because Laurel has been so nasty towards Emma, thinking that her and Thea have a thing going on, because they do. Well, they did anyway. It's so confusing, but yeah, Sutton apparently loved Thea and Thea loved her back. So that's kind of like this whole like messy relationship thing. But now the mystery is who hit Thea, because the person who hit Thea obviously abandoned Sutton's car, and whoever did that might have come back to kill Sutton, because yeah, we have zeroed it down to it being that night that Sutton got killed. So Laurel drove Thea away to this hospital, leaving Sutton at this canyon, and we don't know what happened after that. But what's weird is that now at the end of this book, Laurel has become a main suspect, mainly because her original alibi of her being at the tennis sleepover kind of doesn't check out, because she wasn't there the entire night, which is what I said in the previous book. I think anybody's alibi doesn't really check out in the previous book. Yes, like say for instance Charlotte and Madeline were together, like they had a heart-to-heart, but that still doesn't rule them out as being Sutton's killers. Same with Laurel, she was at that sleepover, but as I said then, like she could have left at any point, and she did. She did. And now I don't know if Laurel was the one who did it, because she's the one who took Thea to the hospital. So was she with Thea for the rest of the night? Or did she go back to kill Sutton? Like, does that even make sense? But now she is the main suspect. We end this book with Sutton saying, it looked like my killer could be closer than either of us realised, maybe even under the very same roof. So yeah, I imagine book 4 is now going to be all about Laurel and her being the main suspect, which is just going to be proven wrong by the end of the book, and it's going to be a different suspect by book 5. So I'm just like a little bit frustrated right now. I could probably skip books 4 and 5 and not miss anything. I could start book 6 right now and everything's fine, because all of those red herrings and all those non-issues in books 4 and 5 will be no issue in book 6. I would test it, but I'm too invested now, you know? Another subplot of this book is that the Lion Game members want to do a new prank, and they want to do it to Ethan. And they mention about how, oh, they've already pranked Ethan before and they're not allowed to do repeats. And Emma's like, oh, I did say that in the files. So Emma didn't even know that Ethan had been pranked before by the Lion Game members. Again, like, Ethan is my prime suspect. He has to be the one to do it. Because what's so strange about it is the fact that, well, one, Ethan is the one to figure out that Emma was Emma and not Sutton, whereas everyone else is still so clueless about the fact that Emma is not Sutton. And also, when Emma goes to Ethan's room, she finds a pair of black climbing gloves. And when we have the moment at the canyon with Sutton in the flashback, in her saying, oh, if I got pushed over the edge here, no one would ever find my body, ha ha ha. It's like, okay. So maybe this is where Sutton dies, and we have this weird random mention of a pair of black climbing gloves in Ethan's room. I mean, this might be nothing, but I am starting to suspect Madeline as well, and maybe Madeline and Ethan together, because when Ethan picks up Emma from the police station, she says the inside of the car smells slightly of cigarettes, even though Emma didn't think Ethan smoked. And we know from the previous book that Madeline smokes, and she does that as a way to cope with her father. So if Ethan doesn't smoke, then who smokes that we know? It's Madeline. So have Ethan and Madeline been in on this together, especially with like Thea being kind of the person that Sutton was romantically involved with, and Thea is Madeline's brother. So I don't know if Ethan got revenge because of the Lion Game thing and worked with Madeline to get revenge because she thought Sutton was playing with her brother's emotions. Maybe, I don't know. But another strike against Ethan is his motive for wanting Sutton dead. And I feel like this is enough to make an unhinged person kill someone. So Ethan shares with Emma what the Lion Game prank was. He says, during freshman year, just after Sutton and her friends saw the Lion Game, they pulled a prank on me. It was awful and it ruined my chances for a science scholarship in this program that I wanted more than anything. My family didn't have the money to send me themselves. I was almost guaranteed the spot, but after the prank, I wasn't. I thought I was over it, but I guess maybe I'm not. I mean, come on. That is one heck of a motive. If he didn't get the scholarship that his own parents couldn't afford, meaning that Sutton kind of ruined his chances at a better future because that's what he wanted in life, I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? And especially since I do think Ethan is the one who did it. I'm going to be so pleasantly surprised if it isn't him. Like, seriously, I hope book 5, maybe it has Ethan as the main suspect and it's proven at the end that he isn't, because that would absolutely make me wigless. That would absolutely floor me and flabbergast me and all of the things, because he is my main suspect. It has to be him. And it's so weird at the end as well, because when Thea comes up to Emma thinking that she is Sutton, he's like, I emailed you before I came back. I emailed you. Why didn't you answer me? And that was why he was in her house at the start, because he thought and assumed that Sutton knew that he was coming. So that whole miscommunication thing was kind of solved. But also this entire book we've had Ethan being the snake on Emma's shoulder, telling Emma, oh, Thea's a bad guy and he's mixed up with some bad things and it would make so much sense if he's the one who killed Sutton. You know, like, he does so much snakery in this that I'm just like, oh, you little shit. But also, yeah, at the end when Thea approaches Emma and is talking to her and Ethan's there, Ethan just legs it. He just goes. Thea comes up to them and Emma says, oh, we're just hanging out, and Thea says, wait. Thea's pale eyes flicker next to Emma. When Emma turned her head, she saw Ethan stepping quickly off the porch. His sneakers kicked up gravel as he trekked across the driveway towards his car. Ethan, Emma called, where are you going? Ethan didn't answer as he strode away. It was like he couldn't get away fast enough. It's like, why? Why would he want to get away from Thea that quickly and that badly? Was he the one who hit Thea with Sutton's car that night at the canyon? And does he not want Thea to see him close up because there's that chance that Thea might have seen who did it? Ethan, why are you strange? Why did you leg it after Thea came? Why? Also, I'm thinking, right, this might be some romantic drama coming up, because even Emma's like a little bit like, you know what, I'm kind of feeling something for Thea here. So this is Thea close to Emma, that she could smell his pine soap and fresh smelling clothes. His bare legs were long and muscular. His white soccer sneakers were scuffed and caked with dirt as though he'd just come off the field. He reminded her of all the hot, unattainable jocks Emma had ever gone to school with, the ones who'd never given her the time of day. She quickly snapped back to reality. Okay, so Thea was cute, but Ethan was her boyfriend. I'm like, oop, but Laurel's also watching this entire thing. And now Laurel is pissed again. Like, she's pissed every single book. She's pissed again at Emma because of this. I'm like, this is some like messy, sisterly love triangle drama, because can you imagine if Emma starts falling for Thea? Especially since I do think that Ethan is the one who killed Sutton. Like, it has to be him. So Emma is going to have some kind of different love interest, because she can't be involved with her sister's killer, right? So I feel like Thea's going to kind of like pull her away a little bit, and it's going to cause more tension between Laurel and Emma / Sutton, and it's just going to be so messy, and that's what I'm here for. Like, as much as I am finding these stories so, like, I'm frustrated at the fact that we've have gotten back to square one. Like, I want progress with this mystery as much as anything, and I'm kind of sick of all of the main storylines in these books turning out to just be filler by the end of it. I'm kind of loving how readable it is. I'm loving how addictive it is. I'm loving how messy and dramatic it can be. Like, I don't root for any of these characters now. Even Emma is starting to really piss me off too, especially since she doesn't really seem to have her own personality anymore. Like, it was fine in the first book, even part of the second book, but the only time she has personality is when she's embodying her sister, and I'm like, I'm not really seeing Sutton as a character, and I don't even really like the scenes between her and Ethan, because it does feel very manipulative on Ethan's part, just to me personally, and everything else, Emma's just pretending to be someone else, and when she's not pretending to be someone else, she's asking question after question after question, and I'm not saying her own personality shine through. So I don't really like any of the characters at the end of the day. That's fine. And even though Sutton was a bad person by the way she treated a lot of people and all those stupid pranks, she obviously didn't deserve to die. So I do really want to find out who did it and get justice for her death. Like, I absolutely am on board with that. Oh, and before I move on as well, it turned out that Thea was in a psychiatric hospital beforehand, and he was kind of like in rehab for a bit, and he checked himself out. So that kind of explains why he's been gone for a bit, and it's kind of backed up by that clue in Sutton's car when the police impounded it and then totally missed it. It did have the name of a doctor who turns out to be from Seattle Psychiatric Hospital, and Sarah Shepard loves psychiatric hospitals. Again, such a main theme in Pretty Little Liars. But yeah, that kind of explains where he's been. And so yeah, I can definitely rule out Thea as a suspect. I can rule out Laurel as a suspect as well, because I imagine book 4 is going to be all about her and how she isn't the killer. But yeah, my money is on Ethan and Madeline, actually. Like, Ethan and Madeline might have planned something together. And Mr. Mercer, aka Sutton's dad, is also acting a little bit shifty. He gets these random phone calls and then he has to like leave, and he has like this dark look over his face, and he also gives Thea some like evil looks every now and then. Could be something there. There could be something there that wasn't there before. Oh, I don't know now. I don't know. We're halfway there. Oh, we're halfway there. I'm in such a musical mood today. I was sick yesterday. I was vomiting. I was on the sofa all day trying to recover. And today, I'm all better and I'm in a musical mood. Okay, please pay my outfit no heed. I am going to be doing a Sister Act movie marathon with my patrons after this update. So I'm just getting in the spirit of the film, since I'm watching both of them back to back. And I'm also going to a Haunted Nunnery next week. So I'm just getting everything prepared for that. But I still want to give you an update for the 4th book, Hide and Seek. I finished this last night and I liked it. It's still only like about a 2.5 out of 5 star. This is definitely ramping up the tension when it comes to the romance. Like, the chemistry between Emma and Thea, I'm thinking it's just a little bit better than the chemistry between Emma and Ethan. Emma and Ethan, they go on their first date and they bond over like really nerdy things, which I do love. I do think they are quite compatible with one another, but that's kind of boring to read, you know? Like, it's kind of really vanilla to me. But when it comes to Emma and Thea, especially since Sutton and Thea were so in love, like, you could tell how much Sutton loved Thea and how much Thea wanted to protect Sutton, especially the night everything happened. So is it weird that I'm kind of rooting for Emma and Thea? Like, I kind of want some drama, I want some tension, especially between Emma and Laurel. Laurel is trying to get closer to Thea, but even Thea admits to Laurel, look, I have a thing for Sutton. We are never really going to be a thing. And one night as well, Emma has a sleepover at Madeline's, and obviously Thea is her brother, and at 3 a.m. Emma goes to the bathroom and Thea is like half naked, and Emma is like looking and she's trying to look respectfully but she's fucking failing at it. There's just like so much like tension there, and Thea's even like, you know, 3 a.m. was our usual meeting time. Is this why you're here? And Emma's like, excuse me? And this is so awkward as well between Ethan and Thea. It is Thea's first day back at school, and he decides to like hang out with Emma and Ethan and everyone. And Thea says, Landry, when did you become the man? And Ethan says, I guess when I started dating the hottest girl in school. And then Thea focused his brown eyes on Emma, like he was looking at her for the first time that night. Yeah, can't argue with you there. And then next to him, Laurel choked on the Diet Coke she was drinking. Choke, bitch. You are not getting Thea. You might have your heart set on him, but Thea is just way too head over heels in love with Sutton, and obviously he doesn't know. I mean, maybe he does secretly. Maybe he is the killer all along. Maybe he's the one who's orchestrated this whole thing, but I doubt it. But it does look like Thea has a thing for Emma, you know, especially since they are twins and he doesn't know. But there is still tension, there is still a spark between them, even though that's not really certain. So that is kind of what I'm like really digging with this story right now. I'm kind of preferring that kind of relationship drama over, say, the mystery because, oh my gosh, it's giving me a headache at this point. Lord have mercy on me. But I am genuinely sick of this whole song and dance of trying to pin someone as the main suspect just for everything to be one big miscommunication. If Emma just asked straight up, then all of this would have been so avoided, like so many things. So for the first half of this book, Laurel is the main suspect because she does pick Thea up after he was hit with the car, and so she drives him to the hospital and she sends Sutton a text saying, next time I see you, you're dead. And the amount of times Laurel does like very thinly veiled threats like that, I mean, she does it all the time. It's like not even a surprise at this point when she would joke about, oh, I'm going to murder you, Sutton. I'm going to do this to you, Sutton. You know, it's just like at this point, it's normal. So obviously all of that was just so redundant and just so boring to read, honestly, because we still have the flashbacks of the canyon and Sutton being at this canyon. Laurel has driven off with Thea to the hospital, leaving Sutton there. I feel like this book is kind of split into two parts a little bit. We have two different suspects, and by the halfway point, Laurel is ruled out. So Thea does tell Emma that Laurel dropped him off and then left not long after. And then when Emma asked Nisha about the sleepover, Nisha does say, oh yeah, when I woke up the next morning, Laurel wasn't there. So it kind of does indicate that maybe Laurel wasn't where she was supposed to be. Like the alibis just didn't check out. However, a little bit later on, about halfway through the book, Thea does tell Emma, oh, I was talking to the nurse this morning and she asked about my girlfriend. And I was like, girlfriend? And she was like, yeah, the blonde girl who stayed with you all night at the hospital when you were brought in. And what Thea didn't know was that Laurel was like beside herself outside the room and she made sure that he wasn't alone even though he didn't know she was there. So that is Laurel's alibi. She was actually at the hospital all night. So we can rule Laurel out, which I knew we would do anyway. But we do shift gears by the halfway point, and the new suspect is now Ted Mercer, aka Sutton's dad. Obviously, we did have some really weird things with Sutton's dad in the previous book, you know, the way that he would look at Thea and he would be a little bit shifty and he'd get like random phone calls and he would have to leave. After Laurel drives Thea to the hospital at the canyon, guess who shows up? Mr. Mercer, aka Sutton's dad. He shows up and he tries to get Sutton and he's like, what did you say? What did you say? And he seems like very weird. And it is revealed that Thea did actually see Mr. Mercer with a woman, and the way that Thea acted like so randomly, so aggressively with Sutton was because he wanted to protect her from seeing her dad potentially having an affair. So the majority of this book, instead of just directly asking, the majority of this book is Emma thinking that Mr. Mercer was having an affair and he killed his own daughter for some strange reason to protect his secret about that. But like, again, like the logic just doesn't logic. Emma needs to actually open her fucking eyes and just ask questions. Like the way she goes about things is just so... And I know she's trying not to slip up and be like, oh, asking questions that Sutton should already know. But like, just say, oh, I forgot. If she had just went to Laurel and said, oh, were you in hospital the entire night? The night that you took him to hospital? And Laurel just said yes. That would have been the entire half of this book just wrapped up like that. Like, we could have got that in 2 pages if we wanted to, but no. And then even the stuff with Sutton's dad, I kind of like the investigative parts of this. It did remind me of some good sleuthing Pretty Little Lies moments, because Sutton's and Laurel's grandmother have come to visit, aka Mr. Mercer's mum, and she mentions very briefly, like, have you been seeing her? To Ted, and Emma overhears everything. It's like, have you secretly been seeing her? She's toxic to the family. And so again, it does perpetuate the idea that maybe he's having an affair. So what Emma decides to do is break into her dad's office and she goes through his stuff, finds some random checks. I'm honestly that shocked about this upcoming twist that I almost choked on my own breath. Because it is actually kind of shocking. Like, I was floored when I read this, okay? So he has been writing checks to a woman called Raven. And I was like, that's so Raven. And it's funny as well because Raven Simone is mentioned in this book. Love the pop culture references, they're so good. Anyway, Ted has been writing these checks to someone called Raven. And just out of sheer coincidence, his phone starts ringing in the office and it's from someone at the Super 8 motel. And obviously that is where Raven lives. That is where Raven is staying. So Emma ends up finding her room number and she ends up ringing and she says, oh, meet me tomorrow at your motel at 9 p.m. I mean, there's a whole B plot that I will talk about in a second, but I just want to like talk about the main mystery stuff right now, like the actual progression of the story. So Emma goes to meet her at this motel, but Raven isn't there. But she does see this like postcard for something called the Horseshoe, which Emma had drove past. So Emma goes to it, but then she bumps into Mr. Mercer on the way. He tries to stop her, and then Emma gets to the Horseshoe. Raven isn't there, but one of the waitresses gives Emma a envelope for Sutton that Raven had left for her. And then when Emma opens up the letter, we get a flashback at the same time from Sutton of the night when she's in the car with her dad, who was driving her out of the canyon, revealing that the woman that he met, aka Raven, was actually Becky. Becky, her biological mother. Emma's mother from the ages of 0 to 5. Raven is the secret woman. And not just that, but Ted, aka Sutton's dad, is actually Becky's dad, which means that Ted Mercer is actually Emma's and Sutton's biological grandfather. He's not even their dad, he is their grandfather. Which means their mum is their grandmother, and the grandmother who came to stay with them in this book is actually their great-grandmother. So I'm like, oh my god, okay, I did not say that coming. Sarah Shepard, you got me. You got me with that one. I genuinely didn't say that coming. I was floored. I was shocked. I was like, oh my god. So he's not having an affair, but he was seeing his daughter Becky, which is what Thea saw and misunderstood everything, which kind of just like led to all of this shit. And Becky is apparently troubled, and Becky has apparently some, well, it's mentioned by her grandmother, yeah, Becky's grandmother, aka their great-grandmother, that she is mentally disturbed. Like, I don't love it when, like, even Pretty Little Lies said this a few times, I sometimes don't think that they handle, like, mental health very well, and there's a lot of instances where people are called, like, crazy or, like, mentally challenged and stuff like that, which I really do not like, and that's how we are going to end this book as well, is that Becky is now the main suspect of Sutton's murderer, which I did mention, it was in the first book or the second book, when the teacher was like, oh, Medea killed her own children. Like, I mentioned something like that, didn't I? I mean, not that I think Becky's actually the killer, because again, she's the main suspect in the penultimate book now, which means she didn't do it. But what was I talking about again? I went off on a tangent. Oh yeah, I don't like it when someone being crazy or anything like that is part of the story. So hopefully, I'm hoping in the penultimate book, Cross My Heart, Hope to Die, it's not shown in the kind of light that I'm expecting it to be shown. I hope it's dealt a lot better than what I'm kind of picturing in my head. But honestly, I was just shocked by that twist. I thought it was so good. My main suspect is still Ethan, because in the flashbacks with Sutton, when her dad is driving her and telling her about her real mother, you see him driving through Ethan's neighborhood where Nisha also lives, but you actually see Ethan in his yard during that time, and he's actually mentioned in the flashback. So he is in the area where I guess Sutton is going to end up being murdered. So I'm really loving the progression of those flashbacks, because we're actually getting somewhere. Even though I knew this entire book Laurel and Mr. Mercer wouldn't be the actual culprit, it was great because we did actually have development in the family drama and the mystery. So I liked it, but I'm still going to only give it like the same rating as the previous book. Or maybe I might give it a 3. No, I am. I'm going to give it a 3 star instead of a 2.5. I do think I prefer it over the previous book. Still not as good as the first book. I think the first book is just like really addictive, whereas the rest of them have just been a little bit predictable, a little bit repetitive. But this one actually threw me through a loop, so that's good. Oh, and at the end of this book too, we do have Emma wanting to know more about Becky now that she knows the truth, and Ted was honest with her. They're now kind of bonding over Becky because Emma loves her biological mother. She wants to know more about her. In Ted, he wants to do what's right by his daughter and effectively his granddaughters. And so he's like coming up with ways of trying to tell her the truth about Becky without alerting Laurel or Mrs. Mercer. That's going to be all interesting. So I don't know what Laurel's situation is. Is she still the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Mercer? Or is she also the granddaughter? Did Becky have Sutton and Emma first, and then Mr. and Mercer had Laurel themselves? But we do end this book with Becky actually being in front of Emma. So Emma's in the car with, was it Thea or Ethan? Thea, she's in the car with Thea, and they're talking about Thea being run over again, because we assumed that it was a man, but even Emma's like, are you positive it was a guy you saw behind the wheel? And Thea says, I guess I'm not really sure. I just assumed it was your dad since he'd been running after us. It all happened so fast. I think the person had dark hair, but I never actually saw a face. So it's given the impression that it could be a man or a woman who was behind the wheel of the car. And then they look in front of them and they see Becky. So Becky is actually there. Becky is right in front of Emma's face, and ... pretty much the end. And now, yeah, Becky is the suspect. Because the only thing more devastating than my adoptive father killing me and threatening Emma was if our real mother had done it all. The end. And I'm like, okay, here we fucking go again. So a lot of like family drama in this one, a lot of really good kind of exploration of Emma feeling like her own mother doesn't want her and the emotions that come with that. So I am finding Emma a lot more of an interesting character in this book than I did in the previous couple. Emma's also grappling with the prospect of not having her own life. You know, like she has to apply for school and stuff like that. But she's like, I'm living a lie. Like, what am I doing? And Ethan's even like, I'll be here for you. It's all good. But Emma's still like, this isn't my life though. So it's just so interesting to see the questioning of that and how that's going to affect Emma's future moving forward. The B plot of this was pretty good as well. I kind of liked it. We had the Devious Four, who are these other 4 girls at school who are kind of the rivals of the Lion Game members. And one day the school is vandalized outside and there is mention of like penis things that are in the trees and stuff. The Lion Game members are the ones who are thought of doing it, so they've been like set up by the Devious Four, and so the Harvest dance has been cancelled. So in order to get the Devious Four back, the Lion Game members decide to hold their own dance by breaking into the school one night and hosting the Harvest dance themselves, not inviting the Devious Four, but hoping that they do show up because they want them to crash it, because Ethan reveals that he can hack into security cameras. So that could be a clue against Ethan. And he can see if it was a Devious Four, because then they'll be able to see them on security camera footage. And so he does get hold of the security camera footage. So at this dance, when the Devious Four finally come and they crash it, the Lion Game members show the footage of the Devious Four doing it, so that everyone in the school is like, oh my god, so it was a Devious Four who did it, the Lion Game members are our saviors kind of thing. One thing I loved about that is not only do the cops come and crash it, but when it happens and everyone sees what the Devious Four actually did, it says here the Devious Four hung their heads, they stared at the members of the Lion Game who had all gathered in the doorway to accept their victory. Emma stepped forward and plucked a tampon off Ariane's shoulder, a smirk on her face. Oh yeah, because they stuffed their lockers with tampons. And then Emma says, now you know who bows down to whom, she said, lightly spinning on her heel. And like, that is kind of badass. That is kind of badass. I do like that. We also have a fight between Thea and Garrett, and like, literally Garrett is the... my habit's coming off, oh no. Thea and Garrett have a fight, and he calls Thea and Emma sluts. And he's just so pathetic. Like, Garrett is one of the most pathetic young adult characters I've ever read about in my life. I know he's butthurt over Sutton/Emma not wanting to sleep with him still, but grow up. Literally grow up. The way that he's just like, he's looking at them from afar and he's just giving these dirty looks. Like, move on. Move on. He comes over and he's like, oh, you're all sluts. And then Thea punches him, thank God. Honestly, I am really rooting for Thea and Emma, actually. Honestly, screw Ethan and Emma. But I feel like I vaguely remember rooting for Ethan and Emma in the TV show. And I also think in the TV show, Sutton isn't even dead. Like, the entire time she isn't dead. She's just getting Emma to fill in for her while Sutton goes off investigating something else. Like, some parts of it's vaguely coming back, but I do think the TV show just took a totally different approach to this entire series, and the books just definitely do their own thing. Oh, another weird fact as well before I wrap up. Emma finds this racket under Laurel's armchair in her room that has blood on it, and it has long dark hair that's very reminiscent of Sutton/Emma's hair. And when Laurel explains it, she says she killed a rattlesnake in the garden. And I'm like, okay, so you keep the bloody racket in your room after you kill a rattlesnake in the garden? But also, then how did Emma's/Sutton's hair get on it? Like, how do you explain the long, dark brown hair? Rattlesnakes don't have long brown hair, do they? I don't think they do. So that isn't even explained. It was just purposefully put there as the most obvious red herring that it pisses me off because, again, it's not explained. It's not explained properly. I don't buy the whole rattlesnake shit because there was long brown hair on it. And it ain't Laurel's hair. How did that get on there? And why the hell did she put it in her room? If she killed in the garden, she could have washed it off. You know what I mean? Or just like throwing it straight in the trash. Why would she hide it behind her armchair in her room? That's just stupid. And even if that was used as a murder weapon, why in the world would she keep it in her room all these months later? It's been like at least 2 months since Sutton's death. Literally. This series is testing me. It's testing my faith. I just hope that by the end of this book, we find out the final suspect and maybe it's actually them. And if it isn't Ethan, amazing. Amazing. There's part of me that's wondering, oh, maybe Sara has purposefully made it look like Ethan and made it kind of obvious, again, to throw us off. And if she does pull it off, then she is literally greater than Agatha Christie, in my opinion. All we needed to do to spice up this series was a death. There was a character death in this. Somebody was murdered at the end of this book. A named character, a character who's been in it since the beginning. They have been murdered. And I was so shocked. I was like, oh my god, like this is what I needed. This was kind of reminded me of the early Pretty Little Liars books. The Pretty Little Liars books had a lot of death in them, which was surprising when I first read them. And like by the end of book 2, there was like another death, and by book 4, there was another death. You know, there were so many deaths in it. That was kind of shocking. And the Lion Game series has only had the one, and that was Sutton. And we end this book with a cliffhanger of who killed this person. I am not going to say who it is just yet. Gonna have to wait. But yes, this book mainly dealt with Becky being the prime suspect, and I don't love it when mental health is kind of the focus of a book, when it's kind of paired with psychosis or like having psychotic breaks and all of the kind of stuff that I don't think books like this have a good handle of. Like there's not enough nuance with it. That's kind of a little bit tricky for me to enjoy something when somebody's just called like crazy or like they had like an episodic break, and I don't vibe with that, especially since for the majority of this book Becky was painted as a villain because she was unstable and unhinged, and so many people were saying like negative things about her, and we do see her a few times. She is caught and restrained in a hospital where both Nisha's dad and Sutton's, well, grandfather, we're going to call him Ted, just to clear up the confusion. Mr. Mercer, aka Ted. You know, Ted also works at the hospital, and Nisha also volunteers at that hospital too. But Emma does accompany Ted to see Becky as she's like restrained, and Becky calls her Emma, and Emma's like, sorry, what you call me? I'm Sutton. I'm not Emma. Who's Emma? And she tries to kind of like gaslight her own mother, who is looking like she's having a very hard time. And it's just like a very weird sequence of events. Sutton does have flashbacks into the canyon again. After she left who she thought was her dad, she runs into Becky pretty much outside the canyon where Ethan's house and Nisha's house are. Because yeah, Ethan and Nisha live opposite one another. And there was a weird moment as well when Sutton is like, oh, Ethan isn't in his yard anymore. And it's like, okay, where did Ethan go then? Because again, Ethan is my prime suspect, and the fact that he was mentioned in the flashback in the previous book, and now he's mentioned again in this one, but he's nowhere to be found. It's like, where did he go? What's he up to? What is he up to? And yeah, before Sutton dies, Becky does tell her about Emma and the fact that she does have a twin sister. And the last thing that Becky pretty much asks of Sutton is for Sutton to find Emma. Like, she wants Sutton and Emma to be reunited. And Becky can't find her because Emma's been bounced around from foster home to foster home. So Becky's kind of like lost tabs on her. And on the night of Sutton's death, she wanted Sutton to go and find her. So it's kind of interesting that before Sutton died, she was about to start looking for her twin sister. And it's like the timing of that is just so like sus. It's like so suspect. There's just so much that I hope gets answered in the final book. If not, if like all of these loose ends are not really like wrapped up in a satisfactory way, I'm gonna be so mad. But yeah, we do end up finding out by the end of the book that Becky is obviously not the one who killed Sutton. And we don't end this book with a prime suspect either. There isn't a prime suspect given, which is great, because whoever it would have been proven not to be the actual person who did it in the next book. So I'm kind of glad we didn't do that, although again, I still have my prime suspect. Also, it's confirmed that Laurel is Sutton's and Emma's aunt. So Laurel is Mr. and Mrs. Mercer's daughter, which does make her Sutton/Emma's aunt, which is a little bit odd, a little bit strange. It'll be really interesting to see if Laurel finds that out and how she feels about that, considering she is younger than Emma and Sutton, and the fact that she has grown up being her sister. Like, what kind of trauma is that going to give her? All of these secrets and the way that she's been raised in a certain way, in a different way, when all of that comes out, which it should all come out by the end of the final book, which I'm so excited about, it could damage her because she has grown up in a certain way. Like, she is getting the rug pulled out from under her. So I really hope that we get all of the secrets revealed and more after that, because I want to see the fallout. I want to see people's reactions and how they cope with it. Emma, during this book, she is trying to find out, you know, Becky and what her mental illness is and all this, that, and the other. She does try to break into the hospital records, and Nisha actually helps her do that, because Nisha, with her dad working at the hospital, she gives Emma this key card and Emma uses it to get into the records room. And when Emma is in the records room, she finds all these different files, but one of the files is on Ethan. And this again is where I'm like, big red flag here, big red flag here. Emma doesn't look at it. She doesn't look at it. She was like, oh, I can't betray his trust. Like, this would be awful if I looked at it, so I'm going to put it back. And I'm just like, why? Why would you do that? You're surrounded by suspects. One of those fuckers killed Sutton. Okay, one of those fuckers killed your sister. Fuck trust. Fuck it. Like, Ethan has kept so much from you, and he is obviously the prime suspect. Why wouldn't you just look? Why wouldn't you just look? I know the ethical side of that, you know, it's Ethan's personal stuff, but also it was weird as well, because before that, when Emma was even saying, oh, I'm going to try and get the records of my mum in that hospital, Ethan's like, don't do that, that's terrible, you can't do that. He was very, very defensive, and that was very suspicious. So it did turn out that he does have a file there that he didn't want her to see, and he explains a little bit later on, and I don't think I believe it. I mean, I believe some of it, but I don't think that's the whole story. But Ethan says that he defended his mum from his dad when his dad was abusive, and his mum ended up calling the police on her son and not her husband. So that got Ethan into trouble. But Ethan says, and this is why I don't believe the file with the size it was, because Emma says it's a big file. Ethan says, the police knew I was a minor, so it was like kind of written off. Yeah, he says, when they evaluated me the next day, they concluded I was acting to defend my mom, and because I was a minor, they just dismissed the whole thing out of court. But I had to keep going in for counselling. Okay, it was kind of proven that he was fine the next day. Why would he have that massive file in the hospital, even if he was going to counselling for a year afterwards? What is that? You know, what is that? So maybe he did do that. Maybe he did defend his mum, and that's great. I do love that sometimes we have these tougher issues that these kids are dealing with. Like, even Madeline's dad has been like a little bit abusive. Ethan's dad, apparently. And I'm just like, okay, these kids have gone through quite a lot, actually. Like, on surface level, you wouldn't think it. But I think Sarah Shepard does kind of do a good job at making the characters feel a little bit more fleshed out. And it seems like a lot of the times it's the parents that are the problem and the kids have to like suffer for it. But back to Ethan, he's just been weird this entire book. He causes a fight with Thea at the school, and Emma and Thea are just like talking and stuff, and then Ethan looks at them, he's glaring, and he just starts fighting. And I'm like, why are you fighting over stale bread? Why do they keep fighting over Emma? It's not even the last time they fight over her in this book. Like, physical fighting I'm talking about. They fight in school, and then later on during Charlotte's party, Emma gets drunk. This is drama. When Emma gets drunk, she and Thea are outside, and Thea leans in to kiss her, and Emma kisses him back, like she leans into the kiss, and they're kissing for like a few paragraphs, and then as soon as they pull apart, like Emma pushes him away. Ethan is, of course, freaking watching the whole thing, isn't he? Like, of course he is. So Ethan obviously comes to beat Thea up, and they're fighting over her again. I'm like, they're fighting over scraps. I don't get all of this fighting and glaring, because if it isn't Thea and Ethan, it's Garrett. I'm like, why? Not really seeing the chemistry between Ethan and Emma in this. They do go on like a little stargazing picnic date where again they kind of like have a little bit of a fight over what Emma should do next. Because again, he's very he's kind of controlling. He's trying to control Emma to go in a certain direction in order to figure out this mystery. So I'm like, this is so suspicious. And oh my god, I think I forgot to mention this in the previous book. When they went on a date together at a restaurant, there was a flamboyant waiter who services them, and when the waiter goes away, both Ethan and Emma start ridiculing the flamboyant waiter, start like acting out his mannerisms and like taking the piss out of him. And I'm like, during Pride Month? And I love the fact that I was saying, oh, they had similar sense of humour, Emma and Ethan, and they were bonding over this, and I'm like, they're bonding over being homophobic? But anyway, after the fight with Thea and Ethan does, you know, forgive Emma pretty quickly. You know, she tells him everything and that she isn't interested in Thea, she's drunk and this, that and the other. And then afterwards, both Ethan and Emma have sex for the first time, and like, they also say I love you to one another for the first time as well. I was vomiting. Like, I was vomiting, like, for real last Friday. But all of those scenes were making me want to relive that vomiting era of my life. I was like, oh shit, here we go again. It's coming back up. I don't like them as a couple. I don't. In Nisha as well, Nisha is like, you guys are a weird couple. And I was like, why do you say that? And Nisha doesn't say anything. But it seems like she is kind of very wary of Ethan, and she does live opposite him, so she's probably seen stuff. And when Nisha finds out about Emma and Ethan having sex, Nisha seems concerned. So Emma says, okay, Ethan and I, last night, you know. The end of his sentence trailed off, but it didn't matter. The room roiled with shrieks and giggles. Only Nisha was looking at Emma with concern. And I'm like, what does Nisha know? And we're gonna get to that very, very soon. Oh my god, just you wait. B plot of this book, before we get to like the juicy ending, the B plot of this book is that the Lion Game members decide to prank a new girl who's come called Celeste. Celeste starts to like date Garrett, and Celeste is just like quite mean and nasty to Emma for no reason. But also, Celeste, she's quite spiritual and she likes yoga and stuff, and she's very into auras and stuff. So when Celeste sees this picture of Sutton and she looks at Emma, she's like, that's not you. And Emma's like, what do you mean? Like, that is me. Of course that's me. And Celeste is like, no, the aura is different. Like, it's not the same. And I was like, oh god. Like, is that a big clue here? Does she know about the switch? Like, does she know? Like, can you really tell someone's aura from a photo? I found that very suspicious. But because Celeste is being like a bitch to Emma, they do decide to prank her, but it's actually Nisha's idea. And Nisha isn't even part of the Lion Game. And this is when I kind of lost a little bit of respect for Nisha, because Nisha's like, I've always wanted to say what it was like to be on the other side of the Lion Game. And I'm like, Nisha, they were so mean to you with that prank a few books back, and like it devastated her, like it really tore Nisha apart. Like she was mortified, she was upset about it, and to want to inflict that on someone else when you've already been a victim of that kind of bullying, I don't like her. I don't like it. See, every single character in this is kind of awful. Like, oh my god, we find out about another prank that they did to Charlotte a few years back. They changed all of Charlotte's tags on like her clothes and stuff to make Charlotte think that she was gaining weight. Like, how awful is that? Like, even Emma apologizes for like what Sutton did and what they did. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed in Nisha when she was like suggesting like a fake seance thing to prank Celeste, because I was like, Nisha, you know what it's like. And yes, I know Celeste is the new girl and she's being a bitch, but come on. So they do end up going to Sabino Canyon, where it looks like Sutton died, and they have the seance at Sabino Canyon, and they hire this fake seance person, what do you call it, fake psychic, from Craigslist to perform it, and Celeste comes and they prank her and all that, and it was fine. Like, it's kind of an interesting prank, because they do try to be like, oh, the evil spirits are coming, and then the fake psychic looks at Emma and she's like, there's someone attached to you kind of thing, someone died recently. Does she actually know anything, or is this just vague to be vague, you know? Right, before I talk about the juicy ending, there was another huge reveal. I feel like I've been all over the place with this. I usually am. I'm just like word vomiting here. But when Emma was looking at the patient files and she like doesn't look at Ethan's, she looks at Becky's patient file and she finds out that 12 years ago, Becky gave birth to another daughter. And that was around about the time when she left Emma, when she was like pregnant with this other daughter. That means that Laurel and Sutton have a third sister. And this third sister apparently lives in California with her dad. So we don't know who the third sister is, but I imagine we might have some kind of reveal in the final book. Is it someone we've already met? Or is it going to be a new character? Are we even going to find out who the third daughter is? Does it even matter? Like, I don't know. Yeah, it was a good reveal. But the main thing about this book was the freaking ending, okay? So Emma is at school with Thea. Emma messages Ethan, and Ethan is homesick, and they're having a dinner at the Mercer house on that night, and he's still going to be fine to go to that apparently. So I was like, okay, Ethan's not at school today. Okay, interesting. And then Nisha keeps trying to call Emma, and Emma keeps rejecting the call, ignoring it. For some reason, like, she just doesn't want to pick up the phone and talk to Nisha for some strange reason. And she keeps ignoring it. It's like 3 or 4 pages of her ignoring Nisha's calls. And then Nisha texts her at the end, call me ASAP, I have something to tell you. And for some reason, Emma doesn't call her, doesn't text her, nothing. And so we get to the nighttime. We get to when we're having this Mercer family dinner, and Ethan comes. He's got into his university of choice, which is great. Laurel's like, oh, so I guess the science fair prank didn't ruin your chances completely then. And Ethan's like, I guess not, but I would still hold it over Sutton's head kind of thing. It's like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then Ted gets a call from Nisha's dad. Okay. He leaves the room and then he comes back and he tells us, that was Sanjay Banerjee. He just found Nisha face down in their swimming pool. She's dead. Nisha got murdered. And a couple of things. Okay, one, why? Why would he call Ted after he just found his daughter dead? They worked at the same hospital, yes, but why would he call him just to tell him that his daughter's dead? He just found Nisha face down. He just found her. So we're talking like minutes, potentially. Like, he just found her. He's probably called the police, an ambulance, whatever, to come over and get Nisha's body. But like, why? Why would he call Ted to tell him that? Would you call a random co-worker about your daughter's death moments after finding their body? Would you do that? And bear in mind, he's already lost his wife. Nisha's mum died years before. So, like, he's now alone. And so, like, maybe he does want someone to talk to about it, and he does feel like, oh, I'm alone, I've got no one to tell. I'll call Ted from work. The main character's dad. Grandfather, sorry. Just to let everyone know who's reading this book that my daughter is dead. Obviously, that's the only reason why he calls Ted, so that we, as readers, and Emma finds out that Nisha is dead. Nisha is dead. After trying to get in touch with Emma during that school day, and again, I don't know why Emma didn't just call her back or just like text like, oh, what's up? You know, like, why wouldn't you do that? Like, it had been hours upon hours upon hours since then. Were you not in the least interested in what Nisha had to say? But also remember, Ethan lives opposite Nisha, and he was absent from school. He was off sick. Come on. Come on. And he was actually late as well. He was late to the dinner. He says Ethan had texted her, tell her he was running late. Sorry, mom stuff, be there soon. So maybe that was when he was like putting Nisha's body in the pool. And then he came, and then that's when Nisha's dad found her, so that he was at the house when she was found. And the fact that we do not end this book with a prime suspect being Ethan makes me think it's still going to be Ethan. It does. It's going to be so interesting to find out in the next book whether I'm right or wrong. But this was a good book again. I'll give it like 3 out of 5. It probably would have been a little bit higher had it not been for a lot of the mental health stuff and that kind of portrayal of it. But we're left with a couple of interesting things. 1, who killed Nisha? 2, who killed Sutton? Are they the same person? 3, are they going to find the third sister? Or is it going to be... It kind of starts sounding like The Princess Switch. You know that series on Netflix? Vanessa and Hudgens, where she plays like 3 sisters by the end of it. Although, actually no, because the new sister's like 5 to 6 years younger than her other sisters. But still, I'm sad to say Nisha dead. That's awful. But at least it adds some more drama to this. And we have like the relationship drama with like Emma having kissed Thea, although it looks like Ethan has already forgiven Emma for it. And Ethan and Emma are like full on a couple now. They've said I love you, they've had sex. Honestly, Ethan could have been playing Emma this entire time. Like, his interest in her is just so much and so quick. What's his alibi for when Nisha apparently died? She would have had to have died after texting Emma for the final time while she was at school. Look, we have 1 book left. 1 book left, and we will finally find out. It is the longest book as well. It's like 370 pages. Oh, God. I'm so excited to find out, but also so worried that I'm going to be so underwhelmed. Imagine if it turns out Sutton's in a coma. Imagine if it turns out that, yeah, she just fell and like nobody actually killed her. And we've just been chasing our tails this entire time. Like, there is so much that could go wrong with the wrapping up of this story. It has just started hailstoning as I am on literally the last like 30 pages of the book. Like, this is the perfect ambience for the finale of The Lying Game. This book made me cry. Honestly, it isn't often that I cry when I'm reading. I mean, it does happen. I am a Cancer moon and Cancer rising. But also my earth sign is Taurus. I was born in May. And so I'm kind of a bit of a mess. I'm all over the place. But this one actually like really got me crying at the end of it. Oh my gosh, I was reading it yesterday and it was hailstoning, it was raining. I was really excited about how this book was unfolding. I was really excited about where the plot was going and all of the reveals and stuff. And yeah, I was just like in my element. It was like one of the best reading experiences of this year. And like, again, it's like not the best book I've ever read. I would probably still only give it like 4 out of 5 stars. It is the best book in the Lying Game series so far, in my opinion. I say so far as if it's going to continue. I still need to read the 2 novellas, but I can't get them where I live. So I am going to try and hunt them down in the future. Might try and do a little review of them in the future also. But if the novellas are anything like the Pretty Little Lies novellas, they're absolutely some of the worst books in that series. So I imagine the novellas don't really add a whole lot to this story, because we find out everything in this book. Everything comes out and it was just so exciting, so good. Oh, so emotional. Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you whether I was right or wrong just yet about who the killer was, who killed Sutton. I will let you guess, like, after everything I've told you up to this point, do you have your own suspect? Is it the same as mine? Do you think it's someone else? Even if you haven't read these books before and you're just following along with my summaries of each book, maybe you have different ideas of who you think did it. I don't know. But anyway, I still, at the start of this book, thought, you know what, it's going to be Ethan, and we have a new suspect at the start in Garrett. So predominantly this book does follow Garrett as our main suspect. And, you know, it's 2 weeks after Nisha has died. It is her funeral. It is very sad, especially since Nisha was so young, you know, she was very young. She had her whole life ahead of her. And just like Sutton, her life was cut short. And she was found in her pool by her dad. And we find out that she had Valium in her bloodstream. The police aren't really acting as if it's suspicious. They think it might be accidental. But Nisha's dad is like very adamant that Nisha would never take Valium and stuff like that. So especially as well, Nisha's room, it was like ransacked. So the killer obviously was looking for something. So that was very interesting. I was like, okay, what was Ethan looking for? Because again, he was my prime suspect. But obviously Emma and Ethan think it was Garrett. So they're like, what was Garrett looking for? At the same time, we get progression with the secrets coming out with the Mercer family. So they have a sort of family meeting, and that is when Ted tells Laurel that Sutton is actually his granddaughter and Becky is his daughter, which means Becky and Laurel are sisters and Laurel is Sutton's aunt. It was kind of comedic and I kind of liked that whole scene because Laurel, she took it pretty well. I mean, she was a little bit pissed that he kept her real sister away from her, like Becky. And I do feel bad for Becky. They treat Becky like shit. They just totally write her off. You know, she's obviously had problems and all this and the other, but they're just like, oh, you know, Becky, she's troubled. Now she's away, so we don't really have to worry about her. So I do feel bad for her. But Laura was like, I can't believe you kept my sister away from me. And then as she's talking to Emma, thinking she's Sutton at this time, she's like, well, I guess I'm your aunt. Ha ha ha, that's funny. She's also really happy that it does turn out that they are biological. Even though if, you know, she was still adopted, that still would have been absolutely fine. So I do love the fact that we had Laurel and Emma / Sutton getting closer in this book, despite that big family secret coming out. So, you know, we still have Emma and Ethan being very close, and we also find out as well that Ghost Sutton is forced to watch them have sex. Like, she can't even cover her ears or her eyes or anything. Whatever Emma sees and hears is what Sutton sees and hears. It's just so awkward. I'm like, why do we need to know this? Poor Ghost Sutton. Like, that is so traumatic, especially since oh no, I can't say it yet, but it's weird. It is weird. And then not long after this, Sutton's body is found. And like, finally we have Sutton's body found. Like, everything that is relevant to the mystery and the plot pretty much happens in this book. Like, we could have had Sutton's body maybe be found at the end of book 4 or something, or even in book 5, and like have that, you know, slow progression of things unraveling. But no, we had like pretty much filler books in the middle with all of the wrong suspects being the main suspects, and then finally in book 6, everything happens. Obviously it makes for an exciting finale book, but yeah, Sutton's body is found. I feel so bad for Sutton now after reading this too. Like, I felt bad for her before because obviously her life was cut short, but finding out what actually happened to her, and you know, it's still like told in flashbacks too, but even when they find her body, Ted has to identify the body. And they think it's Emma. They think that's Emma's body because the ID and everything that Emma brought with her that was stolen the first day she was there, it was planted on Sutton's body, making them think that the body is Emma's. And it was a random passerby who was hiking who found Sutton's body at the bottom of a ravine. The whole cliffs and everything in the canyons up there. So obviously it looks like Sutton had fallen. And that was also kind of ruled as accidental. And at the same time, we do have the flashbacks for Sutton. And she says in the flashbacks, oh, somebody came. It was Garrett. I'm like, how many more fucking people are going to be on this canyon tonight? It's like a whole convention was happening up there. Every single person was there that night. I'm just like, freaking hell. And I knew because the whole Garrett stuff was happening pretty early on in the book. I knew he wouldn't be the one. So I was like, okay, there's going to be another person on this canyon and they're going to be the actual killer. Emma's brought in for questioning as well by the police, and Quinn is like, you remember that first day you were here and you said that you were Emma? and you're being threatened and all this, that, and the other. Like, what was that about? Especially since now we do find out that Emma is dead. Well, they think she's dead. And I do like how clever Emma is when she's trying to cover for that. She's like, oh, you know, I just found out from my birth mom that I had a twin sister, and I just wanted my parents to be honest with me. So I thought I would come to the station and make a scene in order to force them to be honest with me about it. So it kind of works, and it's pretty good. She does get another threatening note from the killer, and I'm just like, at this point, girl, just show the police it. Just show the police all of the notes which you have kept. Just show them. You know the charade is not going to be kept up for much longer. Your time is nearly up, Emma. And it's funny as well because, well, not funny, but like kind of traumatizing too. But like Thea approaches Emma and he's like, I know you're not Sutton. I kind of knew you weren't Sutton from the moment I met you and all this, that and the other. And Emma still lies to him. She still like gaslights him a bit. She says, how dare you? My sister died in that canyon. Now you accuse me of taking her place in some kind of sick parent trap plot. Are you high or just jealous? You'd love it if I were Emma because that would mean I hadn't really done you for Ethan at all. Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened. You were gone. I fell in love with Ethan. End of story. What we had is over, kind of thing. I'm just like, Emma, like at this point, just give up. Give up the ghost. Literally give up the ghost. Just say, yes, I'm Emma and I'm here investigating Sutton's murder. You know, like at this point, what's the point? But what's really clever of Thea is that as Emma's walking away, Thea goes, hey, Emma. And before she could stop herself, she paused. So Emma ended up accidentally responding to her real name. And Thea says, I thought so. Oh gosh. Like all it took was one person to call her by her real name for her to like trip up. And honestly, I was so excited. I was like, this is so good. This is like 130 pages in by now at this point too. It is the longest book in the series at nearly 400 pages. It's like 371. And I was worried that it would be paced like the previous books, but oh no. It was paced so quickly, so well. But this is the kind of drama I had signed up for. So they're still investigating Garrett. They go into his locker at school and they find this little key with SM on it. So like obviously Sutton Mercer. And Ethan's with her too. So like when they find the key, it's because Ethan sees it at the top of Garrett's locker. So they take the key, but they don't really know what it's for. They don't know if it's for a door. It looks too small to be for a door or anything. So like they just take it. Emma goes to Garrett's house and sees Garrett's mum and is like, oh, I think I left my shirt in Garrett's room. It's alright if I go and get it. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. So Emma goes up. She finds Valium on Garrett's floor and she tries to connect the dots. And that's when Emma bumps into Louisa, who is Garrett's sister. And it does seem like there might have been something that happened on the night of Sutton's death with Garrett, that Garrett came back home. He was inconsolable and Louisa had to comfort him. In the flashbacks with Sutton, Garrett knows that Sutton was with Thea, and some parts of it I don't think made a whole lot of sense because at the very start of the series, Garrett was pretty clueless on the whole thing and he acted like Sutton was amazing in the first book and he was doting and loving with Emma, and then he completely changed after Emma dumped him to the person he ends up being in the flashback. So I found his character change a little bit strange, but Garrett does explain a little bit later on, and we do find out, you know, different things about it, which I'll just explain now just to not make it confusing. So Garrett's sister was raped by his best friend and that kind of broke him. And obviously like that's so awful, and it does kind of explain why Garrett is kind of the way he's been. He's like being very hot and cold and all this and the other. I mean, I don't still approve of the way that he treated Emma at all, but like it kind of does give some kind of humanity to him. And the reason why he went back to being all lovey-dovey at the start of the series, because at the canyon with Sutton that night, he was going to take his own life. He was going to jump off, but Sutton stopped him, and they seemed to be fine as they kind of went off on their own. And even though Sutton was like, I'm going to be with Thea, I love Thea, Garrett seemed to be okay with it, he left. But Garrett does tell Emma that when Sutton was different with him the next day, because obviously it was Emma, he thought that she had just forgotten about the whole thing and that she wanted him back. So it kind of messed Garrett up a little bit, thinking, oh, you know, Sutton doesn't actually want to be with Thea, she wants to be with me kind of thing. So obviously it's a confusing situation, whatever it is, but still, the way Garrett acted, some moments were very inexcusable to me personally. But anyway, back to the task at hand. That does mean that Garrett wasn't the one to push Sutton off the cliff. It wasn't him. So if he was your suspect, I'm sorry to break it to you, he didn't do it. Back with Emma, she's taken to the police station, and for some reason, this is what Quinlan does. He's done this 3 times in the series now. He leaves the evidence of Sutton's body, like the file and everything, with Emma in the interrogation room. He leaves it on the desk, leaves the room, and Emma's there by herself looking at this file. I'm like, I swear this is the third time he's done that in this series. He is like one of the worst detectives and police people I've ever read in anything ever. You don't just leave evidence and files in a room with a witness or like a suspect without supervision. You know what I mean? Like, you just don't leave it there. So he ends up leaving it there. She sees the photos of Sutton's body and it's pretty much just a skeleton at this point. And it's so awful, it's so gnarly and like very vomit inducing. But Quinlan does want a cotton swab of Emma's mouth. So he gets a cotton swab and then he ends up coming back and he's like, you're not Sutton. Because Sutton has never had a cavity in her life and you have 2 fillings in your molars. And I was like, shit, he's cracked the case. Okay, so maybe he's not totally useless, but still, I was like, this is when Emma is exposed. And it's so exciting again. I feel so bad because like everyone turns on Emma. And like, I can totally see why. You know, you do have this stranger come out of town and the next thing you know, the person she's replaced is dead and has been dead for weeks and she's been pretending to be here this entire time. You would assume Emma had done something bad. Like, absolutely. I totally understand some of the reactions. I do still feel bad for Emma because we know the truth. But yeah, I can't really blame a whole lot of people for the way they react. Emma does explain herself to Quinlan that, hey, the first day I was here, I told you the first day I came here, so you should be investigated for negligence and stuff like that. I was like, Emma, you go, girl. Absolutely, yes, you did try and tell him. But Quinlan's like, well, let me tell you what I think. And I'm like, Quinlan, who cares? Who gives a shit? But he does end up having to let Emma go because he doesn't have enough evidence. So Emma goes, she tries to go to the Mercer house, but they've changed the locks. And then at the door, Mrs. Mercer's like, get off my property. And those things you're wearing, those are certain things. Give me them back. So she takes a purse off Emma and she's like, just go, just leave. And I'm just like, this is so sad. This is so heartbreaking. Like, poor Emma. She's lived with them for weeks. She knows that she is her biological grandmother. So they are family. And like, oh my gosh, she's just been like cast aside. She ends up staying with Ethan. And again, like, that's not any better if you ask me. But she ends up staying with Ethan. And I don't know why Emma thinks this was okay. But like, she tries to go to school on the Monday. And I'm like, Emma, you've just been exposed to have been impersonating a student at that school. You're not actually that student. You think you could just like walk through the gates and be welcomed at that school? Like, again, I am on Emma's side, but I'm just like, the logic, why would you go to school? You are a suspect in a murder case. You have replaced this girl who ended up dead. The principal sees her at the school and she's like, no, you have to go home. Like, you are not welcome here. You are not a student here. So again, obviously that's so bad for Emma. I felt so bad. But I do have to agree with the principal. Like, can you imagine if that happened in real life? Like, come on, Emma. But then she does run into Sutton's friends outside, so she runs into Madeline and Charlotte. Madeline slaps her and Charlotte tells her to go to hell. I was like, things cannot get worse for Emma. But this is what I live for. This is what I live for. It's so good. It's like, so juicy, so dramatic. Loved it. So with this whole media frenzy, I think her name was Celeste and Travis, who were Emma's foster family before. They're in town because they were like giving interviews and stuff. So Travis is by himself. Emma sees him and she ends up getting his phone off him. And she finds the original email where the video that started this whole thing with Emma was sent, and there was like this meeting place where he was going to get paid for showing Emma, and it's at this like storage unit place. So that must be where this key fits. So Ethan and Emma go to the storage place, they unlock the thing, and it has photos of Emma from the summer before she came to Tucson or Tuscan. I never know if it's CS or SC. There are photos upon photos of her, so she's obviously been followed for a long time before she got there, and the person who followed her must have been the one who sent the video, got her to that place, and has been threatening her the entire time. So they don't have enough evidence that it's actually Garrett's place, so they lock it up. With Ethan living opposite Nisha, they decide to break into Nisha's house to find out what Garrett was looking for the night Nisha died, and this is when we find out who the killer is. So with Emma and Ethan in the house, Emma looks in Nisha's bedroom and she's like, well, where would it be? Like, where would I put it? So Emma does find this tampon box and it has some records in it. It does have a note from Nisha, like, Sutton, I'm so sorry, like, I knew something was up, and she has some hospital records. Now, as you know, when I mentioned this in the previous book, Emma didn't look at these records when she had the chance, because yes, these records are Ethan's records. And at the same time, a flashback to the canyon the night Sutton died. After Garrett leaves, the final fucker who comes to this fucking canyon is Ethan. Ethan is the killer. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Go Twitches. Go Twitches. Ethan was the one who killed Sutton and he killed Nisha. He got Emma all the way here. Oh, it was Ethan all along. Oh, when I tell you, it was still an amazing moment when I found out, because Emma is alone in this house with the killer. So the slow reveal is happening in the flashback. Sutton's like, Ethan, what are you doing here? And Ethan's like, I heard all this commotion. I want to make sure you were okay. And then he's like, is everything okay? Like, do you want to tell me anything? And Sutton like tells him everything. And Ethan's like, yeah, I know you have a sister. I've actually already found her for you. I found her for you because I love you so much, Sutton. I love you so much, Sutton. I want to be with you forever. So it turns out that Ethan was in love with Sutton. He was desperately in love with Sutton to a really obsessive, unhealthy amount, which kind of comes a little bit out of nowhere. Like, I don't think that whole massive love for Sutton was really built up to, especially since, Sutton did do the Lion Game prank that kind of ruined his chances at this scholarship, which, Emma does bring up, and Ethan's like, oh my god, what are you talking about? Like, that was so long ago. Of course that isn't why I killed her. I'm not 100% sure why he falls in love with her, but yeah, it was quite the reveal. He tries to kiss Sutton. Sutton pushes him away, and he's like, why did you do that for? Like, I love you so much. And then he chases her. It's a really exciting chase. He's like, I don't understand why you're fighting this. You're supposed to love me. We're supposed to be together. And she says, I'll never love you. I hiss, spitting in his face. So Sutton spat at him while he has her by this cliff. He gives a howl of anger and twists my wrist so hot spasms of pain shoot up my arm. I writhe in his grip, and for a moment we're motionless, grappling silently for control. Then my feet are sliding out from under me, my body slipping out of his grasp, and I am falling. The last thing I see is his pale, shocked face. So for a second it looks like it might be an accident. Like, Ethan didn't mean to drop Sutton over this cliff. And honestly, her fall down this cliff, it's pretty much described. And it's kind of awful. She grabs onto some exposed roots, but gravity still takes her, and she's in agony. When she lands on the bottom, she's still alive, and a bone is protruding from her left leg. Like, oh my god, it's so vile. And she's still alive. Ethan comes down and she says, please help me, I croak, my leg's broken, I can't walk. And she's still alive. Like, she's bleeding, she's bloody everywhere, she's just fallen off a cliff. And he says, I can't believe you made me do this. After everything I did for you, I didn't want this. I thought you were different, Sutton. He takes off the locket that was around Sutton's neck. She says, give it back, you asshole. Then he's back, looming over me. He's nothing but a dark shape blocking out the stars behind him. There's a jagged, pointed rock in his hands. He holds it high overhead. If I can't have you, no one can, he says. I close my eyes, but I can still hear it whistling through the air as he brings it down over my head. Before I can even scream out, the world explodes in light, the grand finale of a summer fireworks display, and then, just as quickly, my world goes suddenly, finally dark. Like, shit. Shit. So, like, she survived her fall, and Ethan caved her head in with a rock. After he could have saved her, after that fall. It's just so awful. It is so awful. So it's definite that Ethan killed Sutton now. Emma's now with him by herself, and as Emma discovers his record, she finds out that he actually killed an 8-year-old girl while he was 10, and he was let off, but it was later discovered by, like, therapists and stuff like that, that he did it on purpose, and he would likely do it again. Like, he even said that in his files. He is likely to do violence again. So even though he can't be tried for that murder because double jeopardy or whatever, still, people knew. People who examined Ethan, therapists, doctors, they knew he would do it again. He showed no remorse. He pretended to get off the case, and then after that he was like, I'm glad I did it. I will do it again. And they still let him go, like, unsupervised. Surely someone should have been keeping an eye on that boy. Nisha's death should have been, like, a major red flag with him living just opposite. And they knew he would do it again. And even later on as well, when all is said and done, Quinn is like, oh, we've had our eye on Ethan for a while. Why didn't you fucking do anything then? Why did you even let it get to this point? You should have kept a closer eye on him. He's a killer. He's a serial killer. And the fact that Quinn's like, oh yeah, we knew. Whatever. No, you didn't know. Anyway, there's like this really creepy moment when Emma's locked in the bathroom in Nisha's house. And Ethan's like, here, kitty, kitty. Like, oh my god. But it does turn out that he's just talking to the cat. And Emma comes out and she's like, well, she rings Laurel first. She doesn't ring the police, she rings Laurel and it's like, oh my god, it was Ethan, I'm at Nisha's house. And then she puts the phone down and gets out of the bathroom. And he's like, is everything okay? And Emma's like, yeah, we should probably go now. So they get in Ethan's car. I don't know why, considering Ethan lives opposite Nisha. They get in the car Ethan drives the wrong way. He drives towards the canyon, and Emma gets out the car, and Ethan chases her, and he's like, why doing this? I gave you everything. I love you so much, and all this, that, and the other. It is so epic. It is so exciting what happens to the canyon between Emma and Ethan. She's being chased, and Ghost Sutton is like forced to watch. We find out that Ethan spiked Nisha's water bottle with Valium, leading to her death when he realizes that Nisha took out his records from the hospital. He also tells Emma that he never meant to fall in love with Emma, and it just happened. And as Ethan has caught up with Emma and he's like on top of her, this is like really weird moment that is a little bit unrealistic, but I'm gonna let it slide because I love it. I love this moment. So Ghost Sutton, she, for just a moment, kind of possesses Emma, and she helps Emma. Like, she doesn't like take over her body or anything, but like that combined strength of Emma and Sutton pushes Ethan off Emma. I love that. Like, it was so beautiful. One of the best things about the Lion Game series is the fact that we have this relationship between sisters, and that moment itself was just so beautiful. Because Sutton's watching all of this, she's angry. She's like, oh my god, this is my sister, leave her alone. And then somehow I was Emma, or I was a part of her, not possessing her exactly, but somehow joining my soul to hers for a moment, lending her the strength of my anger. With a sudden motion, her right leg broke free from beneath his, and we brought her knee to his groin with all of our combined might. Like, I love that. I love that. And then before Ethan can, you know, he's got a knife and he's gonna kill her, before he can do anything, Thea comes out of nowhere, tackles Ethan to the ground, and then Laurel's there as well. Then Laurel says, you're right, we Messier girls are all alike. We're bitches you don't want to mess with. And end chapter. Boom. Ethan is arrested and we're safe. We're finally safe from the killer. It's so good. Like, all that moment and stuff, like, I know it was predictable. I knew it was Ethan from the first book. Well, I suspected in the first book, solidified it in the second book. And I'm like, that was predictable. Whatever. I'm glad it makes sense, all of this that happened. Although, you know, Ethan's reason for doing it and doing all of it, I guess, is just the fact that he is a psychopath and he just has those serial killer vibes and those genes within him, maybe, I don't know. The motive isn't exactly crystal clear, and sometimes it isn't with murderers. This is no Charles from Pretty Little Lies, if you know what I mean. This ain't no Charles. Like, this made sense. It was led up to. It had all the clues there for you to pick up on. So I don't even dislike the fact that I knew it was Ethan, because the reveal and everything there was just so exciting. The payoff paid off. So now all of that is said and done, there's still like quite a bit left of the book, and that's to wrap up the emotional stuff and the connections in the book. Like, Pretty Little Liars never made me feel the way I felt about like the Lion Game at the end of this book series. Like, I prefer Pretty Little Liars overall, but the Lion Game, it did end up making me care a lot more at the end. So the Mercers do actually accept Emma into the family at the end. Like, they realize what Emma had gone through, what she was trying to do, trying to find Sutton's killer. And obviously it must be so traumatizing for them to have a daughter in Sutton, to then, you know, not know that she's dead the entire time and have someone else replace her who looks just like her, and have to adjust to that. Like, that is such a huge adjustment. Like, how do you adjust to that? It's just so bizarre, such a bizarre situation. So I'm glad that they all apologized to her, but I can also again see where they came from. Their daughter was murdered and they had no idea who it was, and this stranger just took her place. So like, you have to see it from their perspective as well as from Emma's. And then Sutton's funeral begins. Oh my god, at this point I was like trying to hold it together. The roof of my mouth was so heavy. I was like, oh my god, like this is so traumatic, this is so sad. And I was wondering at this point as well, like, is Sutton's ghost going to move on? Is she going to have a chance to say goodbye here? She's now finally at peace. We have Sutton's friends do this like tribute to her, and we have this really lovely moment with Sutton. She says, as I watched the video, my friend's final tribute, my heart felt like a flower opening its bloom to the sun. Pops of colour and light filled my mind, and suddenly everything, every memory, every moment in my life came flooding through me. And at this point I was like, again, Sarah Shepard, even though she writes trashy, entertaining young adult books, she knows how to write, you know? I mean, again, I have had some of my issues with like plot holes and things like that, and like some predictability, and yeah, very minor issues in the grand scheme of things. She still knows how to write. Like, I was just getting all teared up at this point. I was so teared up. Everyone's applauding, and I'm like, again, remember though, Sutton made everyone's life hell. She had a prank game that caused so much grief in so many people's lives, and like everyone's like applauding. I'm like, okay, I guess she is dead, so it's fine. We'll forget about all the horrible things she did while she was alive. Charlotte and Lily and Gabby and Madeline, they forgive Emma as well, and they all agree to stop the Lion Game pranks, which is great. Like, that's growth. That is character growth. They even say, we're not kids anymore. It's so juvenile. Like, yeah, it was. The entire time it was so juvenile. So I'm glad they've stopped that. Like, I'm getting everything I want in this ending. I love a book series that end in a very satisfying, amazing way. It is nearly Christmas at this point, like Thanksgiving, Christmas time. Ghost Sutton is still with Emma. And poor Thea as well. We see the final email that Sutton sent Thea. And Sutton tells him, "You're the only one for me. I know this kind of love comes once in a lifetime. I'm not going to let it go. Yours forever, Sutton." Just for her to die right after that? Like, she found the love of her life in Thea, and I'm like, so I'm so glad that Emma and Thea don't get together. Emma ends this book, like, single, which is great, like, independent woman. She don't need to be with no man. And Thea's heart did belong to Sutton. So even though they did have chemistry and stuff beforehand, I'm glad they aren't together. And I'm so glad Emma isn't with Ethan anymore. Oh my god. And then we get to the final chapter. Oh my god, like, I'm gonna start. I'll probably start crying again. So Emma sees the ghost of Sutton for just a moment. Emma, she saw her there, a shimmer, a flicker, Sutton. Her twin stood right next to her. The ghost of a smile played around her lips, and then she was gone. She's still with her though. She just had this like brief moment where she was allowed to see her sister. And they're putting up the Christmas tree, like the family Christmas tree. The great grandma, she gives Emma a 5-pointed star. Engraved across the front in cursive was her name. Beneath that was her birth date. And her great grandma says, "That was what I gave each of the girls for their first Christmases." So like this is like Emma's first official Christmas, but it's also the first Christmas without Sutton. Like, I'm sorry, but that is just so sad. Oh my god, my camera's gonna die. Like, please don't. We've had enough death already as it is. And so they give Emma Sutton's star, and Emma held them both, one in each hand, engraved with the same date. The sister stars she thought finally together. And I'm like, stop, I'm already dead. I'm already dead at this point. We end the book with Sutton watching all of this unfold, like her family being together, the vibes of Christmas happening. And Sutton says, "And then I felt myself drifting, slowly detaching from the world I'd always known. For a split second, panic shot through me. I wasn't ready. I didn't want to leave them. But then my eyes fell on the tree, on our little silver stars. Laurel had hung hers just below Emma's. I understood then. We were a constellation. We would always be together." Don't die on me now. I turned toward Emma, the twin sister I never got to meet in person, who lived my life and brought me peace, even though it had nearly cost her everything. "Thank you," I whispered. In the reflection of the stars, I saw my form glowing brilliant silver gold, getting brighter and brighter until I couldn't even look at myself. I was turning into energy, pure and vibrant. I took a last look at my family, my constellation, beautiful and bright. "Remember me," I said, knowing they would, and then, as fast as a shooting star, I was gone. The end. Oh my god. Oh my god. I've got chills even now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've got goosebumps all up and down my arms. Like, that's so sad. Finally, all of the family are together and Sutton leaves. Like, she's gone. She can move on now. It's just so sad. Like, Ethan took that from that family. Ethan took a sister from a sister. And what I love about this series is the sister dynamic, the sister relationship, what you would do for your sister. It's, oh god, it's so emotional, and it's tragic. Sarah Shepard, what did you do? And I love the whole sister stars constellation thing. That was kind of a recurring theme in this series too. I didn't really mention too much about it, but Emma did look at the stars. She named the stars after family members and stuff like that. So to have the physical representation of those stars being Sutton and Emma on the Christmas tree and being together finally, it's like, oh, you little shit. You little shit. I loved it. I loved the ending. It was emotional damage. It was just what I wanted from the ending. Resolution. I don't think absolutely everything was wrapped up in a perfect bow or anything, but what was important was the heart of the story. It beats on. You know, it beats on. Yeah, my camera died. It chose that moment to die. But yeah, this was a great book. Definitely the best book in the series. Ended the series with a bang. It just felt like a perfect, everything comes together kind of finale. And I loved it. So that is the entire Lion Game series, all completed, all read. What a ride. What a journey. I still think we could have shortened this to maybe 4 books. We didn't need all of these books essentially being dulled down with so much filler, having the main plot and the main story be just filler. And we could have sprinkled a lot more of the reveals and stuff from the final book into some of the other books, in my opinion. I can understand wanting to delay the reveals and, you know, having all those red herrings and taking us on that journey. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, if I was to ever reread this series, I would just skip from like the first book straight to maybe the final 2 books, because other than, you know, certain character moments and little character development moments, you kind of really don't need to really read books 2 through 4. And you don't really need to read most of book 5 either for the actual plot. So I think if it had been shortened to 4 books and it had been tightened up a little bit, this would have been so perfect. Like, I imagine I would have given the books 5 stars. You know? Like, that would have been so cool. But I still love them. Like, I love Sarah Shepard. I love her books so much. I love her stories. I love it when I read something like this, because it really is like a palate cleanser. And I would still recommend reading these if you are thinking of reading them. I am desperate to rewatch the television show now, but after reading these, I don't think I'm going to like the TV show as much, because I know Sutton isn't dead in the TV show. She is like alive from the very beginning, and we know she's alive from the beginning. So I'm like, that's such a different story. Like, that isn't even the Lion Game books. It's totally different. So I will try and find it somewhere to rewatch it in the UK. I really do appreciate it if you made it this far. Thank you so much. I would so appreciate it if you could like the video, subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this, comment down below all of your thoughts, everything. Let me know absolutely everything you thought about the series. Was there anything that shocked you, or have you even read the books yourself, or even the TV show? Like, which one do you know of? Like, did you watch the TV show first, read the books, and then TV show? Like, what did you do? Like, how did you function all these years? Do share with your friends as well if you have any friends who love the Lion Game. I would really appreciate that. And yeah, I had the best time, and I hope you did too. So thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, you can also join my Patreon if you want some additional perks for my channel, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Bye!